My family mocked me as the thrift store girl. I secretly built a $9.4 million empire. Sister demanded cash. I sent her a thrift store gift card. Gee. My relatives used to call me the thrift shop girl. At Easter, my sister found I had $9.4 million, and they insisted I give it all to her. I couldn't stop giggling and slammed the door straight in their faces. Growing up, I knew early on that I was the family disappointment. My name is Emily Carter, and throughout my entire life, I've been the punchline of every joke my family uttered about failure. My sister Lauren inherited the looks, the charm, and presumably all the brain cells, too. According to our mother, I got hand-me-downs and lectures about being practical. The nickname started when I was 15. Lauren needed an outfit for homecoming, something sparkly and pricey from Nordstrom. I needed clothes for school because I'd outgrown everything during the summer. The budget only went so far when Mom brought the two of us shopping. Lauren walked out with a $280 dress that she wore once. I got left off at Goodwill with $45 and told to make it work. That day, I discovered an antique leather jacket. For $15, genuine leather with very little wear. I was really proud of it. I wore it to school the next Monday, and when I went home, Lauren was laughing with her friends in the living room. She saw me and screamed loudly, "Look, everybody, it's the thrift store girl. Did you get a good deal on those sad little secondhand dreams?" Her friends laughed. Mom, who was in the kitchen, said nothing to defend me. Dad was on a business trip, which was pretty much his permanent state. The name stayed. Family dinners, holidays, odd Tuesday nights, whenever Lauren wanted to put me in my place, out came thrift store girl. I got thick skin out of necessity. While Lauren was pledging sororities at USC and uploading endless photographs of beach parties, I was working 3 jobs to put myself through community college. I lived in a studio apartment that smelled like the Indian restaurant downstairs. I ate ramen and learnt to hem my own clothing. Every dollar counted because nobody was handing me anything. Lauren's education was entirely funded by my parents. Dad mentioned teaching me the value of hard work when I asked if they could help with even 2 semesters of tuition. Lauren already had her degree handed to her on a silver platter, but apparently I needed character building. I majored in computer science because I was good at it, and because the jobs paid well. While my classmates were mingling, I was coding. I developed apps, made websites for small businesses, and gained as much knowledge as I could about software development. It felt like winning a war that no one knew I was fighting when I finished with honors and no debt. Snorts, I worked for a tech startup in Austin for my first professional job. The salary was decent, and I was finally able to breathe without monitoring my bank account every 7 minutes. I rented a 1+den apartment and bought my first new clothes in years. I shared a photo to the family chat, proud of my little sanctuary. "Cute," Lauren said. "Very simplistic. I believe thrift store furniture is making a comeback." She had bought everything new. The comment stung less than it would have years previously, but it still landed. I'd moved 520 miles away, partly for the job, partially to avoid the incessant comparisons. Austin felt like a fresh start, a place where nobody recognized me as the disappointing daughter. I could be just Emily, the coder who created clean code and kept her deadlines. My apartment was in a development near the office. Nothing fancy, but mine. I had a balcony overlooking a courtyard where other young professionals met on weekends. I developed friends slowly, co-workers largely, folks who loved my dry wit and didn't know anything about my family dynamics. When they asked about my background, I kept it vague. Parents in California. Just one sister. Not near. The startup culture was intense yet exhilarating. We had ping pong tables and complimentary food, sure, but we also had purpose. Everyone present thought we were creating something significant. Late nights seemed less like sacrifice and more like investment. I was learning from folks who had sold firms previously, who understood the game we were playing. I started saving aggressively. I determined exactly how much I needed for rent, utilities, food, and a little amusement budget with each paycheck. Everything else went into savings or investments. My coworkers believed that I was suspicious. They spent money on fancy dinners and weekend vacations. I was too familiar with being broke to be reckless with money. Around this time, Lauren announced she was pregnant. The family discussion burst with excitement. Mom was over the moon about being a grandmother. Dad started talking about legacy and family continuity. Lauren acknowledged my congratulations and gift card with a bland, "Thank you." Days later, the baby shower was in California. I couldn't afford the plane ticket, the present, and the time off work, so I chose work. Lauren shared pictures from the occasion, which included ornate decor, high-end baby outfits, and a cake that most likely cost more than my monthly grocery budget. Mom complimented on each picture, saying how lovely everything was and how fortunate they were. I worked overtime that weekend and got a major portion of a difficult job accomplished. My supervisor took note. More responsibility, more money, and more opportunities resulted from that notification. The startup was where I met Daniel Brooks, one of the co-founders. He was intelligent, uncomfortable, and absolutely preoccupied with building software that would improve data security. Daniel noticed something in my work even though I was only a junior developer at first. I was in charge of my own team within 18 months. Within 3 years, I was his partner in every aspect that mattered professionally. Daniel reminded me of myself in some respects, undervalued, driven by something deeper than money. He'd been the quirky kid at school, the one who coded instead of socializing. His parents had wanted him to be a doctor. He let them down by leaving medical school to launch a tech business. We bonded over familial expectations and the liberation of Snort's disappointing folks who never truly knew us anyhow. Our working connection was pure chemistry. On whiteboards, he would scribble out impractical concepts, and I would figure out how to bring them to life. We balanced each other, his vision, my execution. The team as a whole took note. They started dubbing us the Brain Trust, which was both flattering and little obnoxious. We worked 75-hour weeks. We survived on coffee and resolve. Daniel had the vision, but I had the practical ability to make it reality. Our software was good, better than good. It was revolutionary. Companies started licensing it. Small contracts become bigger ones. Tech titans started paying heed. The first time a Fortune 300 firm licensed our software, Daniel and I went to a dive pub to celebrate. We weren't champagne people. We ordered whiskey and sat in a booth that smelled like decades of spilled beer, beaming at each other like idiots. "We've done it," he said. "We built something that mattered. Your family must be proud," Daniel replied, somewhat inebriated. I laughed. "They don't fully grasp what I do. My sister thinks I fix computers." "Really?" She once asked me if I could help her printer connect to Wi-Fi. When I tried to explain what I truly do, she got bored and turned the discussion to her kitchen makeover. Daniel shook his head. "My parents still question when I'm going back to medical school. Some people can't see past their own expectations." Even though our families weren't among those who cared, we clinked glasses to that. As the company grew, so did my role. I wasn't just coding anymore. I was making strategic judgments, hiring team members, negotiating contracts. Daniel trusted me entirely, which meant I had equity that matched my value. When we finalized the ownership structure, I ended up with 38% of the company. Daniel had 38%. Early investors and key workers split the remaining 24%. I didn't tell my family much about work, and why would I? Every time I acknowledged an achievement, Lauren found a way to downplay it. She revealed her engagement to Ryan Whitaker, whose father controlled a chain of auto dealerships. When I told them I had been promoted to senior developer, the talk instantly switched to her princess-cut diamond and her wedding preparations. The engagement happened during my 3rd year at the startup. Lauren announced it in the family chat with a snapshot of her hand exhibiting a big ring, 2.5 carats at least, maybe 3.2. Ryan had proposed during a beach trip in Maui, dropping down on one knee at sunset while a photographer filmed every moment. The photographs were professionally altered and posted within hours. Mom called me crying with joy. "Your sister is so blessed," she kept saying. "Ryan is such a catch. He's going to take such wonderful care of her." I was debugging a critical system failure when she called. I had 4 developers waiting for my comments and a client presentation in 90 minutes. I said, "Congratulations," and that I had to go. Mom seemed dissatisfied that I wasn't more, clears throat enthusiastic. The reality was, I felt nothing. Somewhere along the line, I had lost interest in Lauren's happiness. Her life was her life, mine was mine. Obligation was the single point of intersection. I attended that wedding by myself. Even at the age of 26, I felt invisible in a dress that I had purchased brand new from a department shop. Lauren's bridesmaids were all sorority sisters who looked like they'd stepped out of a magazine. I sat at a table with distant cousins who spent the whole reception on their phones. The wedding was at a resort in Napa Valley, 4 days of celebrations leading up to the ceremony. I could only afford to come for the wedding day itself, flying in Saturday morning and going immediately from the reception that evening. The welcome meal and the brunch the next morning were both missed. Nobody seemed to notice. In that pricey, impersonal way, the ceremony was lovely. White roses everywhere, a string quartet. In a beautiful gown that probably cost more than my car, Lauren looked amazing. Ryan cried when she walked down the aisle, which the videographer filmed from numerous perspectives. I sat 19 seats back on the bride's side, between a great aunt who kept asking who I was and a family friend I'd never met. When Lauren passed by on her way down the aisle, her eyes slipped right over me. I don't think she even registered that I was there. During the toasts, Lauren's maid of honor talked about how Lauren had always been destined for greatness, how she'd always known precisely what she wanted and how to obtain it. Dad's toast highlighted how proud he was of his successful daughters, but he only cited instances about Lauren. Mom shed tears of pleasure. I drank champagne and pondered why I bothered to come. The vineyard where the celebration was held had golden hour light, which made everything appear to be from a movie. I tried to interact, but kept finding myself in conversations where I was the odd one out. Lauren's friends chatted about spin classes and vacation houses. Ryan's family talked golf handicaps and investment properties. In order to pass the time, I nursed my drink and looked at my phone, reading work-related emails. At one point, a groomsman approached me. He asked me how I knew the couple while intoxicated and amiable. When I stated I was Lauren's sister, he appeared genuinely astonished. Really? She never mentioned having a sister. We're not close, I said. He moved off to find someone more fascinating to talk to after nodding as if that clarified everything. I departed during the dancing, claiming I needed to catch my flight. No one attempted to stop me. While I waited for my red eye, I got an Uber directly to the airport, changed into cozy clothing in a restroom, and worked on coding for a project that was due on Monday. It was a better use of my time than trying to enjoy a party where I didn't belong. Flying back to Austin, I felt relieved. I'd accomplished my familial commitment. I'd shown up. I'd been courteous. Now I could go back to my actual life, the one I was establishing, brick by brick, the one that actually mattered. From the airport, I sent Lauren another congratulations text. She responded with a heart emoji. Our communication was limited to that. Lauren announced her first pregnancy roughly 9 months after the wedding. By then, she'd fully committed to the lifestyle influencer path, chronicling everything online: gender reveal parties, nursery design blogs, maternity photoshoots. Her pregnancy was a well-planned production. She had Emma in the summer, and the birth announcement earned hundreds of likes. I sent a gift, useful baby supplies from the registry. Lauren wrote a boilerplate thank you story on Instagram, naming everyone who'd sent gifts. I wasn't sure if she even knew which products came from me explicitly. Being underrated means that no one is paying attention to you. While my family was obsessed over Lauren's Instagram perfect life, I was developing something real. Daniel Brooks and I had developed software that was attracting serious attention. Tech corporations were not just licensing it anymore. Their goal was to purchase the whole business. Daniel called me at midnight 4 months after the wedding. We were invited to meet with a large firm regarding an acquisition. He could hardly get the words out, his voice quivering with excitement and anxiety. We'd known this time would come, but theoretical possibilities hitting reality felt different. The next week, we had a meeting with their team. Corporate executives in expensive suits asked technical inquiries and financial estimates. Daniel answered the questions about vision. I handled the technical aspects and practical implementation. We were a good squad. By the end of the meeting, they were more intrigued than when we'd started. The paperwork began to come in. NDAs, tentative offers, due diligence demands. Daniel had previously worked with our attorney, who guided us through each stage. She was forthright about the odds. Most acquisitions fell apart. I heeded her counsel, saying, "Don't get excited until the money's in the bank." I kept it a secret from my family. I didn't inform my friends. I just kept working, kept living in my tiny apartment, kept saving money like I always had. If the deal happened, terrific. If it didn't, I still had a nice career and equity in a developing firm. I was 27 when the first real offer came in, $18 million. Daniel and I each controlled 38% of the company, with 24% split among early investors. $6.8 million would be my portion. I was unable to comprehend the quantity. The money had the feel of monopoly. Daniel desired to hold off. He thought we could develop something bigger. I trusted his instinct. It had been right about everything else. We declined the offer and continued to work. 7 months later, another offer came in. $30 million, then $42 million. We kept saying no. Each rejection felt like gambling. What if we reached our peak? What if we declined money that may change our lives only to see the business fail? Some nights, I would stay up and perform math, figuring out how long $6.8 million would last and how my life may change. But Daniel's confidence was contagious. He showed me predictions, market analysis, growth possibilities. Our software was becoming industry standard. Companies weren't just licensing it. They were creating entire security infrastructures around it. We were getting essential. That meant leverage. We hired a CFO who'd dealt with successful exits before. She was sharp as a knife, in her mid-50 seconds, and didn't put up with any crap. She looked at our records, our contracts, our growth potential, and told us we were morons for considering anything less than $60 million. "You're not just selling software," she remarked. "You're selling the future of data security. Price accordingly." So we did. We responded with $96 million when the subsequent offer was made for $48 million. They laughed. We turned to leave. 3 corporations were interested by then, which meant competition. Competition meant better terms. I still lived in my tiny apartment. I still shopped sales. The money was theoretical, wrapped up in a corporation that existed largely as code and contracts. My family had no knowledge because I never told them. What was the purpose? They'd already decided who I was. Lauren had quit her marketing job following the wedding. Ryan's family money meant she didn't have to work. She got her nails done, practiced yoga, and shared updates about her fortunate life on the internet. Mom would send me Lauren's posts with obvious captions, like, "Your sister looks so happy. Lauren had won at life," while I was still trying. By this time, Lauren had Noah, her second child, 3 kids before 31, all planned, all recorded widely on social media. At least in the carefully chosen Instagram squares, her life appeared ideal. A lovely home, lovely kids, and a lovely wardrobe. She'd become a lifestyle influencer with a modest following, obtaining free things in exchange for posts. I was unaware at the time that Ryan's financial circumstances weren't as steady as they seemed. His father owned many dealerships, certainly, but Ryan had insisted on running his own store independently to show himself. He'd taken out considerable loans to purchase into a franchise, sure he could make it lucrative. His pride wouldn't let him approach his father for aid when things started going south. However, I wouldn't find out about any of this until much later. I observed from a distance, both interested and repelled. How much of it was real? Did she genuinely adore the life she depicted, or was she just as constrained as I'd been, performing for an audience that wanted perfection I didn't ask for? Other than the required Christmas texts, we hardly communicated. She was preoccupied with her ideal existence. I was engaged building something genuine. Christmas that year, Mom sought to organize a family reunion. I rejected, citing job constraints. It was partly true, we were in the thick of heated talks, but largely I just didn't want to spend a week watching Lauren's highlight reel while being reminded of my own perceived incompetence. Mom was hurt. She sent me a lengthy email about how important family is, how I should not let work rule my life, and how I was losing out on seeing my niece and nephew grow up. She failed to clarify that I had only had 2 brief encounters with Noah. She didn't mention that Lauren never inquired about my life or indicated interest in visiting me. The task for keeping family connection was presumably mine alone. I didn't reply to the email. I worked through Christmas and felt okay about it. That year's Thanksgiving was especially cruel. Lauren and Ryan had just acquired a house in a gated community. She spent the entire dinner chatting about crown molding and granite countertops. When Mom inquired about my life, I explained we were in acquisition discussions. "That's nice, dear," Mom murmured blankly. I stopped trying to share after she said, "Lauren, tell us more about the master bathroom renovation." In February, the final offer of $92 million for the full acquisition was made. Daniel contacted me around 11:30 p.m. His voice shaking. The purchasers were serious. They wanted our software, our people, our vision. After 7 years of preparation, this was the moment. My share would be $36 million. After taxes and paying back early investors who'd taken reduced returns, I'd walk away with around $9.4 million in liquid assets. $9.4 million. I sat on my apartment floor and stared at the wall for an hour. Daniel and I signed the papers in March. The money hit my account 3 weeks later. I watched my banking app refresh and saw a balance that didn't seem real. Before I turned 28, no one in my family knew that I was a millionaire. I didn't buy a mansion. I didn't purchase a sports vehicle. I used a financial advisor and made cautious investments for the most part. I did purchase a lovely condo with brand new furnishings in a nice neighborhood. I purchased well-fitting clothing. I donated to causes I cared about. I lived comfortably, but not extravagantly. The secret felt good. For the first time in my life, I had something that was entirely mine, something my family couldn't diminish or claim or make about Lauren. I was given a folder of documents to go over and signed by my financial advisor. I grabbed them on my way out the door one morning, intending to look through them during lunch. Instead, I got pulled into back-to-back meetings. I shoved the folder in my purse, thinking I'd deal with it later. A current portfolio statement that displayed my entire balance was one of those documents. Before Lauren discovered it, I had totally forgotten it existed. Mom called to insist that I join her for dinner as Easter drew near. I usually avoided holidays, but something made me agree this time. Maybe I was feeling generous. Maybe I wanted to see them with my new perspective. Maybe I just wanted to prove to myself that their opinions didn't matter anymore. I drove to their house in my new car. Just a dependable luxury sedan, nothing ostentatious. I parked on the street and walked up to the house where I'd grown up, carrying a store-bought pie because I'd never been much of a baker. The door was answered by Lauren. She looked me up and down, and I saw the moment she registered my clothes were expensive, very costly. Her eyes narrowed a little. "You look different, Emily," she said. "Thank you," I said as I entered. "You look great, too." The house was decorated for Easter with pastel everything. Ryan was in the living room watching basketball with Dad. Mom was in the kitchen putting final touches on dinner. Lauren's 2 kids, Emma and Noah, were running around, hyped up on chocolate. I hugged my parents and tried to settle into the familiar discomfort of family gatherings. Dad didn't really listen to my response when he asked me about my job in the ambiguous manner he always did. Mom complimented my blouse and asked where I got it. When I mentioned Nordstrom, she appeared taken aback. "Splurging a bit," Lauren said from behind me. "Did you get a raise?" "Something like that," I replied. The customary production was dinner. During her court appearance, Lauren discussed Emma's dance recital and Noah's soccer team. Ryan contributed occasional comments about his dealership sales numbers. Mom and Dad nodded along, fully engaged. I ate ham and scalloped potatoes and felt like I was watching a play I'd seen too many times. After dinner, while Mom was serving pie, my phone rang. I glanced at it, my financial advisor. I excused myself to the back porch to take the call. It was nothing urgent, just a question about some paperwork I needed to sign. The conversation lasted maybe 7 minutes. When I came back inside, the atmosphere had changed. Lauren was standing in the hallway with my purse in her hands. My stomach sank. "You left this on the chair," she said, her voice strange. "Your wallet fell out when I picked it up. Things spilled everywhere." She held up a bank statement that had fallen from the folder. The balance was clearly visible. $9,400,000 and change. The room went quiet. Mom's pie server clattered against the plate. Dad's eyes widened. Ryan leaned forward. Lauren's face went through several emotions. Shock, confusion, anger, then calculation. "Is this real?" Lauren demanded. I took the statement from her hand, folded it calmly, and put it back in my wallet. My heart was pounding, but my voice came out steady. "It's none of your business." 9.4 million. Mom's voice was faint. "Emily, where did you get $9.4 million? "I earned it," I said simply. Lauren laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. "You earned it? Doing what?" "You work in computers. Programmers don't make $9.4 million. This one did," I replied. "My company was acquired. That's my share." The silence that followed was deafening. I could see them all recalculating everything they thought they knew about me. The thrift store girl was a millionaire. The family disappointment had more money than any of them. Dad found his voice first. "Emily, that's wonderful. Truly, why didn't you tell us?" "Because it's my business," I said, "and because I knew this would happen." "What would happen?" Mom asked, looking hurt. "This," I gestured at their faces. "You've never cared about my success before. Why would I share this with you now?" Lauren's shock was transforming into something uglier. I could see the wheels turning, the entitlement rising to the surface. "After everything this family has done for you." "Like what?" I interrupted. "Please enlighten me. What has this family done for me?" "We raised you," Mom said. "You raised both of us. You paid for Lauren's entire college education while I worked myself into exhaustion to afford community college. You've celebrated every one of Lauren's accomplishments while barely acknowledging mine. You allowed her to mock me for years, calling me thrift store girl like it was funny." "That was just teasing," Lauren said defensively. "It was cruel," I shot back. "And you all let it happen. You all participated." Ryan, who'd been quiet, suddenly spoke up. "Emily, Lauren is just surprised. We all are. This is a lot to process, but family is family, right? And family helps each other." There it was, the real reason for the tension in the room. They wanted my money. "Help each other? How?" I asked, already knowing the answer. Lauren jumped in, her voice taking on a pleading quality that might have worked on me once. "Emily, Ryan's dealership has been struggling. The economy, supply chain issues, you know how it is. We might lose the house. We have kids to think about. You don't have children. You don't have a husband. You don't have anyone depending on you. You have more money than you could ever spend." I stared at her. This woman who'd made my childhood miserable, who'd mocked my struggles, who'd never once asked if I was okay or needed help, and now she wanted my money. "So let me get this straight," I said slowly. "You want me to just give you my money? The money I earned while you were posting selfies on Instagram? The money I made while you quit your job to play housewife? You want me to hand over what I worked for because Ryan made bad business decisions?" "It's not like that," Ryan protested. "It's a loan. We'd pay you back." "No, you wouldn't," I said flatly. "And even if you intended to, you couldn't. If you can't manage your own finances, why would I trust you with mine?" Mom stepped forward, her face earnest. "Emily, honey, please. Lauren is your sister. Those are your niece and nephew. You wouldn't let them lose their home, would you? How much are you asking for?" I asked, genuinely curious about their audacity. Lauren and Ryan exchanged glances. $650,000 would cover everything, Lauren said. "The mortgage, the debts, enough to get us back on our feet. It's nothing to you. It's barely 7% of what you have, but for us, it would mean everything." I felt something shift inside me. All the years of being overlooked, dismissed, mocked, they crystallized into perfect clarity. These people didn't love me. They never had. I was just someone they kept around to feel better about themselves. And now that I had something they wanted, suddenly I was family. "No," I replied. Lauren blinked. "What? No, I'm not giving you money, not $650,000, not $750, not 10 cents. Her face flushed red. "Are you serious? After everything? After everything?" "What?" My voice rose. "After you spent our entire childhood making me feel worthless. After you called me thrift store girl at every opportunity. After this family made it clear that I was worth less than you in every way that mattered. Now you want me to rescue you. We're family," Lauren shouted. "Family supports each other. Family doesn't mock each other," I said coldly. "Family doesn't play favorites. You want to know what family is? It's not this. It never was." Dad tried next, his voice taking on the authoritative tone he used when we were kids. "Emily, you're being selfish. Your sister needs help, and you have the means to provide it. This is what decent people do. Something inside me snapped. I started laughing. I couldn't help the absurdity of it all. Them calling me selfish after a lifetime of their selfishness. It was too much. The laughter kept coming, rolling out of me in waves. Decent people? I managed between laughs. Where were decent people when I was eating ramen for dinner so I could afford textbooks? Where was family when I was working 3 jobs and going to school full-time? Where was support when I was building a career from nothing? We didn't know you needed help, Mom said weakly. You didn't ask, I shouted, my laughter dying. You never asked because you didn't care. As long as Lauren was happy and successful and posting pretty pictures, I could suffer in silence. I was just the thrift store girl. Remember? I wasn't worth your attention. Lauren's face was twisted with rage. Now you're really going to let us lose everything. You're going to let your niece and nephew be homeless because you're petty and bitter. You're not going to be homeless, I said tiredly. You're being dramatic. Sell the house. Downsize. Live within your means like I had to. Figure it out like I had to. Work for it like I did. I have children, Lauren screamed. Then be a better example for them, I shot back. Show them that hard work matters. Show them that you can't just coast on charm and good looks. Show them that actions have consequences. Ryan stood up, his face hard. You're making a big mistake. We're family. You're going to regret burning these bridges. I picked up my purse and headed for the door. They followed me, their voices overlapping, pleading and demanding and threatening all at once. Lauren grabbed my arm, her nails digging in. Please, she said, and for a second she looked genuinely desperate. Emily, please, I'm sorry about the stupid nickname. I'm sorry I wasn't nice. I'm sorry. Okay, I'm sorry. Just help us, please. I looked at her, really looked at her. She was still beautiful, still perfectly put together, but there was something frantic in her eyes. She'd built her entire life on a foundation of other people's money and goodwill, and now it was crumbling. I felt nothing. I'm sorry, too, I said quietly. I'm sorry you're in this situation. I'm sorry you made choices that led here, but I'm not your bailout. I'm not your backup plan. I'm not the thrift store girl you can dismiss and ignore until you need something. I pulled my arm free and reached for the door handle. Lauren's apology transformed back into rage instantly. You selfish, she snarled. After everything we've done for you, we gave you a home, we fed you, we raised you. And this is how you repay us. You did the bare minimum that parents are legally obligated to do, I said. That doesn't entitle you to my money. Mom was crying now. Dad was red-faced and angry. Ryan was pacing, and Lauren looked like she wanted to physically attack me. I opened the door. Emily, if you walk out that door, you're not welcome back, Dad said, his voice hard. If you choose money over family, you're no daughter of mine. I paused in the doorway and turned back to look at them. You chose Lauren over me. My entire life, I said. You chose appearances over substance. You chose comfort over fairness. You made your choice a long time ago. I'm just finally making mine. You'll regret this, Lauren shouted after me. When you're old and alone with nobody who loves you, you'll remember this moment. You'll remember that you chose money over your own family. I smiled at her, and it must have been a terrible smile, because she took a step back. I'd rather be alone with $9.4 million than surrounded by people who only love me for what I can give them. Get out, Lauren screamed. Get out and don't come back. That's the plan, I said. She lunged forward and slammed the door in my face. I heard the deadbolt click through the door. I could hear shouting, crying, the chaos of a family falling apart. I stood there for a moment, waiting to feel something. Regret, sadness, anything. Instead, I felt light. I walked to my car, got in, and drove away from that house for the last time. My phone started ringing before I'd made it to the highway. Lauren. I declined the call. She called again, declined again. I blocked her number, then I blocked Mom's, then Dad's, then Ryan's. The silence was beautiful. They tried everything over the course of the following few weeks. Mom sent emails begging me to reconsider, saying Lauren was having breakdowns, that the stress was affecting the kids. Dad's emails were reasonable at first, but when I didn't reply, they became more and more irate. Lauren created new email addresses when I blocked the old ones. Her messages alternated between apologies and threats. Ryan sent LinkedIn messages, Facebook friend requests from fake accounts, anything to get through to me. I ignored all of it. My lawyer sent a cease and desist letter that immediately closed that avenue after Dad's lawyer sent a threatening letter regarding alleged inheritance claims. The harassment eventually slowed and then stopped. A mutual acquaintance informed me that Lauren and Ryan had indeed lost the house. They moved into a rental in a less prestigious neighborhood. Ryan's dealership closed. Lauren needed to find real work, a retail position at a mall. The gated community and the Instagram perfect life were gone. I felt a flicker of something that might have been sympathy, but it passed quickly. They'd made their choices. They'd built their lives on unsustainable foundations. Their financial problems weren't my responsibility to fix. My business was what I did with my money. I provided funding for computer science scholarships for students from low-income families. I donated to organizations that helped women in tech. I invested in startups founded by people who reminded me of myself: hungry, talented, overlooked. When my grandmother entered assisted living, I purchased her home. It was the only place I had happy childhood memories of. I renovated it carefully, keeping all the things that mattered. I live there now, surrounded by things. I made decisions. I earned things that are truly mine. I began dating a person I met at work. Another developer with his own success story. Someone who understood the value of hard work because he lived it, too. When I told him about my family, he didn't tell me I should forgive them. He just held my hand and said, "Some people are family. Some people are related. There's a difference." 7 months after Easter, I got a wedding invitation. In a publicity stunt to demonstrate their continued strength, Lauren and Ryan were renewing their vows. Emily Carter and the visitor were the recipients of the invitation. There was a handwritten note: "You are still my sister in spite of everything. I'm hoping you'll attend. We can talk." I threw it away without responding. 18 months after that Easter, I got a message from Lauren through a method she'd somehow found that I hadn't blocked yet. It was lengthy, meandering, and filled with well-practiced rather than sincere apologies. She talked about how hard things had been, how much she learned, how she understood now what I'd gone through. At the very end, she asked if we could meet for coffee. Not to ask for anything, she wrote, just to talk, just to try. I read it 3 times. I thought about the girl I'd been desperate for scraps of approval from people who'd never really seen me. I reflected on the woman I had grown into, one who was resilient enough to reject those who made fun of me. Without replying, I erased the message. Some bridges aren't worth rebuilding. Some doors, once slammed, should stay closed. Some families are better left behind. I learned in therapy. Yes, I went to therapy, because having money means being able to afford healing. That I'd spent my whole life trying to earn love that was never going to be freely given. I'd been performing for an audience that wasn't watching. The moment I stopped performing, stopped seeking their approval, I became free. The money didn't fix me. It gave me options, security, comfort, but it didn't heal the wounds. That work was harder and took longer. I had to unlearn the belief that I was worth less, that I deserved less, that I should be grateful for scraps. I am enough. I always was. My value as a millionaire was equal to that of the thrift store girl who pieced together clothes from used items. The only difference is that now I know it. My life is quiet these days. I work on projects that interest me. I travel when I want to. I have friends who chose me, not because of blood or obligation, but because they genuinely like who I am. My partner finds my thrift store finds endearing. Who loves hearing stories about the vintage leather jacket I still have hanging in my closet. I built a life that's mine. No one can make fun of it, minimize it, or take credit for it. I see someone who has persevered, worked, and refused to let other people determine her value when I look in the mirror. Sometimes I wonder if my family thinks about that Easter dinner, if they replay the moment they discovered I was wealthy and immediately demanded I share it. I doubt they comprehend why I laughed in their faces and turned to leave. People like that rarely understand. They'll always believe they're entitled to what others have earned. They'll always think family means having claims on each other's success without having to contribute to it. But occasionally, late at night, when I'm in the house that is really mine, I recall Lauren yelling at me as I stood in that doorway and telling me to leave. I remember the sound of that door slamming in my face, the finality of the deadbolt clicking into place. I recall the sensation of leaving, and I smile, because the truth is, they did me a favor. They freed me from the last lingering obligation I felt toward them. They revealed their true selves to me one last time. Out of habit and guilt, they ended a relationship that I had been attempting to maintain. And I walked away lighter than I'd ever been. The thrift store girl became a millionaire. The family disappointment became successful beyond anything they had imagined. The girl they overlooked became someone they couldn't ignore. And I turned them down when they finally saw me, needed what I had created, and wanted something from me. That's the power of leaving. The power that no one ever discusses. The ability to choose oneself. The power of refusing to set yourself on fire to keep people warm who would never do the same for you. I don't regret it. Not even for a moment, not when I'm lying in bed in my beautiful home, not when I'm funding scholarships that help girls like I was, not when I'm living a life I actually chose instead of one that was chosen for me. Lauren was right about one thing, though, it's not the way she meant it. Sometimes I'm by myself, but I'm not lonely. There's a difference. Loneliness is being surrounded by people who don't see you. Being alone is having space to breathe without apologizing for taking up room. I'll take alone over unloved any day. The last time I thought about reaching out was my birthday last year. My partner, friends, and other individuals who had made the decision to be in my life sent me messages when I woke up. I thought about how different it was from birthdays past, when my family would give me practical gifts while Lauren got jewelry and trips. I thought about calling, just for a second, just to see if anything had changed. Then I remembered Lauren's face when she saw my bank statement, the calculation in her eyes, the speed with which love turned to demands. I made pancakes instead and took myself out for a spa day. Some people spend their whole lives chasing approval from people who will never give it. Some people break themselves trying to fit into spaces that were never meant for them. Some people accept crumbs and call it love. I did that for 27 years. Now I live differently. Now I know better. Now I understand that walking away isn't giving up. It's growing up. My family used to call me the thrift store girl like it was an insult. They thought secondhand meant second rate. Clears throat. They thought bargain hunting meant bargain living. They thought that because I didn't have what they had, I was less than who they were. They were wrong about all of it. The thrift store girl learned to see value where others saw junk. She learned to take broken things and make them beautiful. She learned that worth isn't determined by price tags or family approval or Instagram likes. She learned to bet on herself, and she won. So, no, I won't be reconciling with my family. I won't be funding Lauren's lifestyle or playing the role of family ATM. I won't be attending holidays or pretending everything's fine or accepting half-hearted apologies designed to manipulate rather than heal. I'll be here, in my house, living my life, making my choices. I'll be the thrift store girl who became a millionaire and discovered that some of the greatest things in life like self-respect, sincere relationships, and the tranquility that comes from putting oneself first can't be purchased. They slammed the door in my face, thinking it was punishment. It was liberty. My wife begged to open our 5-year marriage for a UPS guy. I'm attracted to him. She kept lying. Our 7-year history ended in a legal battle now. Ryan, 31, married Sophia, 30. We've been married for 5 years, and together for 7 since meeting at a neighborhood event. Sophia is a downtown medical office administrative assistant. Mid-sized firm accountant. We both got good degrees from State College and we're making a good life together. We possess a tiny suburban house, 2 paid-off automobiles, and intend to start trying for kids next year. Our family love us together. My parents flaunt their gorgeous daughter-in-law to friends. Her parents love me like their son. We travel with family and host dinners, and everyone says we're perfect together. Hannah, Sophia's sister, calls us relationship objectives. My brother Luke wishes to find what we have. The same UPS delivery guy has delivered to Sophia's office for 4 years. Ethan, 28, is single. Sophia infrequently mentioned him, generally saying he was kind or had brought a huge shipment that day. Nothing much occurred to me. Sophia mentioned Ethan more 7 months ago. She would tell me about his compliments on her new hairdo or how he asked about her weekend plans. She timed her lunch breaks to be in the office when he arrived. She said they talked for 20 minutes when he brought things. Sophia returned home in March looking different. She lingered on our couch staring at the wall before dinner. When I asked what was wrong, she stated Ethan asked her a sensitive question that day. She told me he was attracted to her and wanted to know if she was too. She stated she couldn't answer because she was married. But she looked at me and said she had to be honest. She liked talking to Ethan and found him handsome. She maintained she would never cheat, but the pull was there. She wondered if she was a bad wife. I assured her her attraction to others was normal and trusted her entirely. I thought it was over. Sophia grew distant during the next few weeks. Dinner time saw her staring out the window. She used her phone more. She went to bed earlier than usual, claiming fatigue. Sophia asked me about open marriages 2 months later over coffee on a Saturday morning. She stated she read online about married couples that permitted each other to see other individuals. She inquired if it would ever work. I was surprised. I told her that sounded like a formula for catastrophe and that if people wanted to sleep with others, they should divorce. She nodded and suggested lunch. Sophia revisited it the following week. She was direct this time. She was thinking about Ethan a lot and wondering whether we could explore that attraction without losing our marriage. She loved me and wanted to stay married, but she wondered about Ethan. I directly asked her if she liked Ethan beyond physical attraction. She thought about him daily and anticipated his deliveries more than anything else in her work week. She stated she had never felt this strongly about anyone since we met. I thought about her words all weekend. Sophia was silent, and let me think. On Sunday night, I asked if she had crossed any lines with Ethan. They never touched, texted, or met outside of work, she said. After Ethan asked her that question months ago, she revealed she told him she found him handsome. It hit me hard. That felt like emotional cheating, I told her. She defensively claimed they were being honest, and not cheating. That night we battled for hours. Sleeping in the guest room. Sophia apologized before work the next morning. She saw how her friendship with Ethan had crossed bounds and decided to keep their interactions to business. She felt our marriage trumped any other attraction. Normalcy returned for 4 weeks. Sophia ceased mentioning Ethan. She seemed more engaged in our chats. We enjoyed visiting my parents over the weekend. I thought we'd resolved everything. Sophia told me something one night in May while we were in bed after getting intimate. Despite trying to focus on our marriage, she kept thinking about Ethan. She wanted to talk to him more after limiting their discussions. She felt like she was lying by denying the desire. She inquired again about open marriage. This time, she specified. She asked to pursue her relationship with Ethan while married to me. She stated it would be physical and not affect our relationship. She pledged to value our marriage more. I was quiet for ages. I was hurt that she couldn't let things go, but I also wondered if our marriage could withstand it. Sophia appeared so divided about the matter that I wondered whether letting her vent may preserve our marriage. I promised Sophia I would consider it under specific conditions after a week of thinking. I stated we needed clear regulations and complete transparency. She agreed quickly and looked relieved. Next 2 weeks were devoted setting guidelines. First, interactions have to be announced with times and locations. Second, we would discuss what transpired without graphic details. Third, safety was required. Fourth, either of us could end the agreement for any reason. Sophia requested 2 more rules. She wanted to hide our open marriage from family and friends. She wanted a pledge that we will stay married and resolve conflicts together. I disregarded both regulations. I told her I wouldn't hide secrets from people we cared about if necessary. I couldn't commit to stay married because I didn't know how I'd feel once things started. Sophia was dissatisfied but decided to stick to the 4 guidelines. Looking back, I should have paid more heed to her reasons for more precautions. I should have known she had the same concerns as me. I was focused on seeming fair and reasonable at the moment. Sophia didn't act on the open marriage for a month. She claimed she was worried about doing it. I was hoping she would reject it. Ethan then asked her why she seemed different on one of his delivery. Sophia realized she missed their longer discussions and didn't want him to believe she was mad. That afternoon, she texted me about inviting Ethan to drinks after work to explain the issue and see if he was interested. I said that she should do what she wanted. Sophia said she met Ethan at a bar near her office that night. She explained our open marriage and asked him to join. Ethan was astonished yet curious, she claimed. They agreed to meet at his apartment Thursday night after work. I left early for work on Thursday to avoid seeing Sophia get ready for her date. I silenced my phone during meetings to avoid her messages. Since I hadn't answered to her earlier messages, she texted me around 3 p.m. to check on me. I replied that I was all right and would see her that night at home. Sophia texted me around 4:30 p.m. that she loved me and will be home by 7 p.m. Just as I was feeling concerned, as anticipated. I never updated because I hoped things would improve on their own. They didn't. Sophia went straight to the shower when she got home that Thursday night without saying anything. She made dinner earlier and put it in the fridge with a note indicating she would cook for me. She brought wine and candles to the dining room, but I wasn't home. I went to a sports bar to watch the basketball game since I couldn't stand being there when she returned back from Ethan's. After turning off my phone, I stayed till almost midnight. Sophia slept in our bed when I got home. The fridge had a plate of food. Sophia tried to tell me what happened the next morning. She found Ethan nice, but not fantastic. She realized how much better things were with me. She said she wanted to end the open marriage because it could ruin our connection. I told her it was too late. I stated she got what she wanted and I deserved the same. Since we agreed, she couldn't complain when I stated I'd start looking for a date. Sophia went quiet and inquired if I had a person in mind. I declined but promised to find someone. She asked me if I wanted to hurt her or be with someone else. I replied my motivation didn't matter because we agreed. Over the weekend, I downloaded dating apps and created profiles. I stated I was married and seeking casual meetings. Sophia watched me from the couch without comment. Within days, I matched with several women. Olivia, 27F, a night shift nurse, wanted something casual and no strings attached. We met for coffee after a week of texting. The lovely woman was easy to talk to. Meeting at her residence the following weekend was planned. Sophia requested a conversation before I told Olivia my ideas. She regretted her Ethan error. She wanted to end our marriage and return to normal. She said she would do anything to remedy her mistake. I told her I was meeting Olivia. I stated Sophia had opened this door and I wouldn't let her slam it shut because she didn't like what was within. I replied I could examine my alternatives if she could explore her desire to Ethan. Sophia didn't argue, but she changed. I texted Olivia and she left the room. She went to bed sooner. She stopped talking about work. She answered briefly and seemed distracted. Sophia left early the day I was meant to meet Olivia and didn't return until late. She said she spent the day with her sister Hannah but didn't elaborate. Sophia was asleep with the lights off when I arrived from Olivia's apartment about 10 p.m. Sophia inquired about Olivia the following morning. I assured her it was fine and I'll see Olivia again. Sophia nodded in comprehension. Over the next week, she asked more questions. She wanted to know when I was seeing Olivia, how long I would remain out, and if I liked her. Sophia was reminded that we committed to share basic information, not questioning. Her inquiries felt like she was attempting to control my experience without letting me manage hers. Sophia stated she was attempting to understand our marriage. 4 weeks after meeting Olivia, I noticed Sophia was coming home later from work. When I asked, she replied she was working additional hours to cover for a sick coworker. But when I called her office one afternoon to check about dinner plans, her colleague stated Sophia left at her usual hour. I confronted Sophia about the lying that night. She broke down and confessed to meeting Ethan again. After seeing Olivia, she realized she didn't want the open marriage to end. She wanted the same freedom if I kept seeing other people. Why did she lie instead of telling me about her plans with Ethan? As the one who wanted to end the marriage, she feared my anger. She didn't want me to believe she was hypocritical. The greater concern was that she was meeting Ethan without telling me, violating our first guideline. Our honesty pact was broken by her lying about her location. Sophia replied she didn't think those rules still applied because I was seeing someone. That was not how agreements worked. I reminded her. I replied I followed Olivia's original rules, by announcing my goals and being honest. I said her rule breaking showed she couldn't handle an open marriage responsibly. Sophia apologized and pledged to comply. She promised to inform me of Ethan's future plans. She also asked about my future intentions with Olivia using the same system. Something had changed between us. Conversations felt strained. We tracked each other's outside activities competitively rather than supportively. Instead of talking, we ate supper on our phones. We stopped planning weekends together since we were occupied with separate plans. By the end of the month, I realized we lived more like roommates who occasionally slept together than a married couple who saw other people. Update 2. The open marriage lasted 7 weeks before ending. Sophia's sister Hannah called me at work in late July. She stated Sophia seemed different in previous discussions and asked whether we were okay. I told Hannah Sophia and I were having some relationship troubles, but nothing significant. Hannah stated Sophia said I worked late and seemed aloof at family events. She asked whether I was having job troubles or anything else she should know about. I told Hannah work was fine and thanked her for checking in. However, Hannah's call made me understand our position was affecting our family bonds. Sophia and I were too busy with outside relationships to attend family functions. We canceled supper with my parents twice in recent weeks. Since Sophia's open marriage, we hadn't had our monthly game night with her family. My brother Luke unexpectedly visited our house on Saturday afternoon the following week. Sophia was at Ethan's, and I was getting ready for supper with Olivia. Luke wanted to check in because we'd been busy. Sophia and I slept in different bedrooms, which Luke observed. We started this arrangement a few weeks earlier because our schedules with others meant we came home at various times and didn't want to wake each other up. But I recognized how it may have looked to someone unaware of our arrangement. I told Luke Sophia and I were going through a hard time but working on it. Luke volunteered to help in any way he could and hoped we could work things out because we were so amazing together. I sat in our empty house wondering if we were making a big mistake after he departed. Sophia arrived from Ethan's apartment that evening, and I asked if she had told anyone about our open marriage. She said she considered telling Hannah, but she knew she wouldn't understand. I told her about Luke's visit and how awkward it had been to explain why we seemed to be having troubles without explaining what we were doing. Sophia shared her thoughts. She stated lying to her family about her activities was tiring. She missed sharing her life with her loved ones. After ending the open marriage, we focused on rebuilding our relationship. Sophia informed Ethan that Olivia and I would no longer see her. We promised to deactivate dating apps and reconnect in the evenings. First week, everything improved. Like before, we cooked dinner, watched movies, and discussed work. We planned to visit my parents and have Hannah and her boyfriend around for supper the next weekend. However, Ethan visited Sophia's office on a delivery-free day. Sophia informed me that night that Ethan missed her and wanted to know if she would reconsider quitting their relationship. She answered no and begged him to respect her decision. Ethan visited us 2 days later. He wanted to speak to Sophia when I answered the door. I informed him Sophia was unavailable and instructed him to leave. Ethan stated he knew Sophia didn't want to break up and that I was probably making her stay away from him. Ethan was wrong, and Sophia and I had ended our open marriage. Ethan didn't trust me and needed Sophia's word. After I refused to retrieve Sophia from upstairs, Ethan stated he would keep coming back until she talked to him. Sophia stated she'd phone Ethan to tell him she didn't want to see him anymore when I told her about his visit. To clarify the problem, Ethan called Sophia at work the next day and invited her to meet for coffee. Sophia agreed, wanting to terminate things permanently so Ethan wouldn't bother us. Sophia stated Ethan didn't like the news when she got home that afternoon. She stated he accused her of wasting his time and luring him on. He also made unpleasant comments about our marriage, she said. She said Ethan said I was manipulating her and she would realize her mistake. 4 days later, Ethan called me at work. He requested a face-to-face discussion with Sophia. He claimed Sophia wanted to meet him but was blocked by me. If I loved Sophia, I would want her to be happy, he said. I informed Ethan he was wrong about Sophia's feelings, and to cease approaching us. Ethan claimed he didn't believe me and would keep talking to Sophia until she informed him she didn't want to see him. I asked Sophia what she told Ethan during their coffee rendezvous that night. Sophia informed Ethan that she would no longer see him and prioritized our marriage. When I asked for further specifics, Sophia said she had informed Ethan that ending things was hard because she had enjoyed their time together. I asked Sophia if she gave Ethan any incentive to keep seeing him. Sophia admitted she may have been too gentle about ending things to avoid hurting Ethan. She thought Ethan mistook her politeness for an indication that she was being forced to break up. The following week, Ethan started visiting Sophia's office during her lunch breaks, even when he had no deliveries. Sophia's co-workers asked why the UPS driver was searching the building. Sophia's supervisor questioned if their delivery service had a problem. Sophia reported feeling trapped. She couldn't tell her employer why Ethan was bothering her without revealing our open marriage, but she couldn't ignore his conduct because it was affecting her work environment. She stated she might work from home more to avoid Ethan. Update 3. Everything culminated in September when Ethan's behavior exceeded our expectations. Ethan had been visiting Sophia's office practically daily for 4 weeks. Sophia's manager ultimately complained to UPS about their driver's unprofessionalism. It got worse when the business shifted Ethan to another route. Ethan waited for Sophia in the parking garage where she parked her car without his delivery job, which gave him access to her building. Sophia texted me when she left work so I could expect her home. Ethan cornered her and insisted on extensive chats about their relationship, so she often arrived late. Sophia came home shaken one mid-September evening. She stated Ethan followed her car from work and parked outside our house. Ethan approached her in our driveway after she got out of her car and requested to come inside to talk to us. Sophia claimed Ethan thought he could convince me with a frank conversation that she wanted to keep seeing him. She stated Ethan believed I was an aggressive husband who controlled Sophia and prevented her from making her own decisions. Ethan was in his car across the street when I peered out our front window. When I contacted the police non-emergency number, I said someone wouldn't leave us. Ethan was instructed by the responding police to leave our neighborhood and cease pestering us. But Ethan continued. He called Sophia's office many times a day the next week. Sophia's manager advised her to find a new job if Ethan's behavior didn't improve soon because it was upsetting the office. Sophia decided to confess to her supervisor why Ethan was upsetting her. She said she had dated Ethan personally and was attempting to break up. Her supervisor was kind, but she couldn't let Sophia's personal issues affect work forever. Ethan started ringing our house phone. Without knowing the number, I stopped answering. Ethan sent long voicemails describing why he thought Sophia and I should divorce so she could be with him. All of these messages, angry and pleading, showed that Ethan was upset that Sophia had ended their relationship. Ethan visited my office in early October. He told the receptionist he needed to talk to me regarding a mutual buddy. I instantly told Ethan to leave the lobby when I spotted him. Ethan wouldn't leave unless I admitted to forcing Sophia away from him. My office visit by Ethan was the final straw. Telling my employer the problem and asking for advice. My supervisor suggested I talk to a lawyer about getting Ethan to stop pestering us. Our lawyer stated we had enough evidence to get Ethan a restraining order. His voicemails, visits to both our offices, and following Sophia home showed a pattern of harassment that warranted legal action. We requested the restraining order in November. Ethan was served papers ordering him to keep away from us, our house, and our workplaces. The order barred him from calling, emailing, or otherwise contacting us. Unfortunately, our marriage was already damaged. Ethan's harassment has strained our relationship for months. Sophia rued her involvement with Ethan. I regretted agreeing to the open marriage despite my strong doubts. We focused on Ethan's behavior management. We stopped eating supper together because we were too worried. We stopped making weekend arrangements because Ethan could destroy them. By December, we were strangers sharing a house. Nor were we fighting, but neither were we bonding. In the same room, we watched TV without conversing. We slept and woke up differently. I spent New Year's Eve alone while Sophia went to her sister Hannah's house. We were invited to the same party, but we agreed we weren't ready to act normal around our friends. I realized our marriage ended that night. Our trust and intimacy from 7 years together were damaged by the open marriage experiment. Even when Ethan left, we couldn't find each other. In January, Sophia and I split. She temporarily lived with her sister Hannah while we decided what to do. We told our families we were taking time apart to concentrate on our relationship, but but we knew we were definitely divorcing. Our divorce was filed in March. Since we agreed on asset distribution and didn't fight, it was easy. We divided the house sale earnings. Without any conflict, we divided our furniture and household goods. The divorce ended in June. Sophia acquired her own apartment across town and a new job. My office is closer to my new smaller home. We don't talk anymore. After reflecting, I realized we were both naive about open marriage. We felt we could regulate intimate relationship emotions and issues outside of marriage. We felt we could make restrictions to protect our primary relationship while exploring our attraction to others. We discovered that some doors can't be closed after opening. Adding people to our marriage changed us unexpectedly. Most importantly, we learned that some mistakes are irreparable, even if both parties desire to correct them. Neither of us remarried. Sophia may not have dated after our divorce. I've had some casual dates. Everything that happened makes me hesitant to trust again. The restraining order against Ethan remains. I believe he followed the law and avoided us. However, it taught me how fast a stranger can become a big threat to your safety and peace of mind. Sophia's attraction to Ethan and desire to explore it are understandable. I blame us both for assuming we could handle an open marriage without damaging our relationship. Move on to the next story. Story 2. My sil exploited her HR position to have me fired from my dream job because she wanted her brother back with his ex. I exposed her, and now my family hates me. Jason, 32M, and I, 28F, have been married for 4 years. I met him at a corporate end-of-year party while I was a marketing intern and he was a senior manager at another company. We clicked right away and started dating. I had all I wanted in Jason. Kind, encouraging, and promoted my professional interests. We married in a simple ceremony after 3 years of dating. His sister Chloe, 32F, disapproved of our relationship from the start. She constantly reminded everyone that I was an intern when I met Jason, hinting that I was a gold digger pursuing her brother's money. Her tight friendship with Jason's ex-girlfriend, Rachel, 33F, drove her hatred. Rachel and Chloe had been together since middle school, and Chloe wanted them back. Jason and Rachel have a tangled history. From their final year of high school, they dated for 7 years. Everyone in their group expected them to marry. Chloe called them the perfect couple. They were wealthy, social, and their parents were friends. Rachel worked at her father's company and studied business like Jason. Chloe and Rachel were best friends since middle school, and Rachel was like family. They broke up when Rachel accepted a position at a famous company in another city. She asked Jason to join her for a big career move. However, Jason had been shortlisted for a key company promotion. His 6 years of service were going to be recognized. Rachel suggested Jason could easily find another work in the next location, but Jason wouldn't give up his brand new career. After a few months of long-distance dating, their priorities clashed, causing their breakup. Chloe fully supported Rachel and chastised Jason for putting work before love. She believed Jason would have moved with Rachel if he loved her. She spent months convincing Jason he was selfish, and would regret leaving Rachel. Chloe kept trying to arrange a reunion when Rachel relocated to the new city and started dating others. After Jason started dating me, Chloe's conduct worsened. My history made her think I wasn't good enough for her brother. My family is middle class. Dad teaches high school and mom works part-time at a library. I worked part-time in college to pay for it. This showed Chloe that I simply wanted Jason's money. She often made fun of my clothes, car, and area. She compared me to Rachel at every family dinner, telling Jason how much smarter and more accomplished Rachel was. Despite Chloe's attitude, I worked on my career. Working hard and taking extra classes helped me advance in my industry. I finally got my dream job at a major IT company in our city after years of trying. The job was everything I worked for. Higher salary, increased responsibility, and amazing growth. I was happy until I learned Chloe worked in HR at the same company. I didn't know this when I applied because she changed jobs. I was apprehensive but stayed positive after learning. As professionals, I hoped she would keep our personal matters apart from work. That optimism was misplaced. Strange things happened at work throughout the next 7 months. Project deadline emails disappeared from my mailbox. My calendar would randomly change with wrong meeting times, causing me to miss critical discussions. My team would misinterpret my project availability. I initially felt these were technological issues or miscommunications. I kept thorough notes and double-checked everything, yet the problems worsened. Most unexpectedly, the truth emerged last week. Chloe's voice came from one of the office restroom stalls during lunchtime. She was on the phone with a quiet but excited person. Although I was frozen, I recognized she was talking to Rachel. Chloe boasted about her successful strategy to fire me. She described utilizing HR access to hack my work email and calendar. She chuckled at how anxious I looked and said it would get worse. What shocked me most was her following step. She planned a phony harassment accusation from a male colleague against me. She warned Rachel that if I lost my work, I would have to depend on Jason financially and everyone would see I was a gold digger. Although I was queasy, I recorded the exchange on my phone. After collecting enough evidence, I presented a recording to the head of HR and filed a formal complaint against Chloe. I documented all my work difficulties. The business immediately suspended Chloe for investigation. She also had her HR system actions audited. Jason was outraged with Chloe after learning what happened. I had never seen him so mad at his sister. Always trying to keep peace, he made allowances for her actions. But this went too far. Chloe exploited her position and broke company standards while trying to ruin my career. Since then, Chloe has been calling and texting us. She alternates between crying and threatening that I am destroying her career and family. She advised Jason to pick between his sister and his gold digger wife. She even tried to convince him I set her up and illegally videotaped her. Jason's parents intervened after hearing what happened. His mother thinks reporting Chloe to HR was excessive. She believes we should have resolved this within the family discreetly. She claims that family comes first and that I am vengeful. His father appears to understand our stance better, but he won't take sides to maintain family harmony. Perhaps I did nothing wrong. Chloe was trying to have me fired from a job I worked hard for. She was willing to fabricate harassment charges that may ruin my career. She misused her HR position and broke several rules. Protecting myself and my job was necessary. Jason supports me reporting her, but this has shattered his family. Everyone is taking sides, making family gatherings uncomfortable. Update 1. 2 weeks after my post, the situation has changed unexpectedly. The company's Chloe probe ended yesterday with harsher results than expected. The company fired Chloe and is considering legal action for various privacy and data protection concerns. The investigation found that Chloe tampered with more than my work schedule and correspondence. She illegally accessed confidential personnel records, modified performance reports, and attempted to access compensation information. The most unsettling discovery was that she helped Rachel search company databases for Jason information. She reportedly searched business event and meeting records for female employees who interacted with Jason to uncover evidence of inappropriate behavior to use against him. We were most surprised when Rachel moved back to our city 7 months earlier. Not only a distant voice supporting Chloe's actions over the phone, she was actively involved in the plan. She worked at a competitor firm and gave Chloe suggestions for sabotaging my career. They had a complex plot to fire me and ruin my industry name. They wanted Jason to see me for what they thought I was by making me look like a gold digger who couldn't work. The timing of Rachel's homecoming was also intentional. Her residence was 12 minutes from Jason's office thanks to Chloe. They planned Jason and Rachel's informal encounters at coffee shops and restaurants to reunite. Rachel joined Jason's gym, but he didn't notice because he typically goes early in the morning and she went after lunch when Chloe knew I'd be in meetings. Everything has crushed Jason. Chloe hated me, but Dad always supported her, believing she would change. His excuse was that Chloe was overprotective and needed time to accept us. He kept in touch with Rachel through groups and acquaintances, assuming their breakup was amicable. His discovery that his sister and ex conspired against his marriage devastated him. Blocking their numbers and social media accounts, he's cut off all touch. His parents' reaction worsened things. They're downplaying Chloe's actions. His mother said I was manipulative for recording the toilet chat and should have addressed Chloe instead of reporting to HR. She keeps saying Chloe was trying to protect her brother from making a mistake, hinting she detected something suspect in me. The most stinging part was when she claimed that I wouldn't have reacted so passionately to Chloe's background research if I had nothing to conceal. Jason snapped at a family meal last weekend. His mother called us over to keep things nice, but it was an ambush. Chloe cried and blamed me for her professional loss. Jason snapped when his mother suggested forgiving and forgetting. He told them to leave our life if they couldn't respect his wife and marriage. He reminded them that they had constantly condemned his relationship with Rachel for being overly dependent on her family's approval, and now they were doing the same with Chloe. Although the inquiry vindicates me, watching Jason's family come apart is terrible. Several of his childhood pals, including Rachel, now support Chloe. They claim I seduced Jason away from Rachel, and then destroyed Chloe's career out of jealousy of their close relationship. I was even accused of planting evidence during the company's investigation. Chloe deftly plays victim. She's been telling everyone I planned this to separate Jason from his family. She claims I illegally captured and twisted her private chat to get her fired. She portrays herself as a worried sister, attempting to save her brother from a gold digger. Unfortunately, some believe her account. The whole affair has split Jason's family. Family gatherings are awkward due to individuals taking sides and not talking. Some of Jason's relatives have stopped communicating. To avoid turmoil, His cousin's wedding next month has quietly uninvited us. Even Jason's father, who first understood our viewpoint, now suggests we could have handled things better. It's been hard, but Jason and I are sticking together. Due to the betrayal, he's been having difficulties sleeping and seeing a counselor. My report of Chloe stands. She wanted to ruin my job and marriage, but seeing Jason lose his family was the worst thing I've ever seen. Update 2. A month has passed since my last report, and things have become worse. Chloe's sabotage continued after we believed it was over. Everything got worse last week when our IT department found something. Chloe constructed a bogus email account using my identity and company credentials 3 weeks before she was fired. She sent improper and suggestive messages to multiple male colleagues, including top managers, using this account. She added credibility to the communications by using HR records to find personal information about these men. Only until one receiver noticed a particularly improper email sent automatically using a delayed delivery setting did the IT department find this. IT traced the IP address and confirmed that Chloe's work computer sent all these emails. They found dozens of written messages for the next months. Such sexual stuff would have gotten me fired and possibly blacklisted in the industry. This was Chloe's backup plan if her other attempts to fire me failed. The company's legal team is considering charging Chloe with identity theft, harassment, and sensitive information misuse. All the male colleagues who received these emails had to be contacted to explain the situation and assure them I wasn't participating. The whole incident has embarrassed me, but most of them have been understanding. I hear whispers when I pass, and some male colleagues avoid me in conference rooms and elevators. Jason is furious. He claims he no longer recognizes his sister. His childhood Chloe would never have done something so cruel and deliberate. Going through old family photos and recalling how close they were makes this betrayal difficult to accept. He finally told his parents about the bogus email account to explain why we can't forgive and forget. Instead, his mother believed Chloe did it because her HR research revealed anything questionable in my history. She tried to get Jason to check my former relationships to make sure I hadn't done this. The true shock came yesterday when Rachel unexpectedly visited our house. She was waiting in her car when I arrived home from work. After I pulled into the driveway, she stepped out and walked toward me. Jason, who works from home most days, came outside shortly after I called. Rachel apologized and said that things had gone out of hand. She said Chloe convinced her Jason was unhappy in our marriage and wanted out. She stated Chloe told her Jason still liked her but felt trapped with me because of what others would say if he left his marriage for his ex. Rachel broke down when Jason refused to talk and asked her to leave. She screamed in our driveway that I stole her life. She said Jason and she planned their entire future, including their house, number of children, and dog names. She claimed that Jason had promised to reunite once she was situated in her new city and that I had used their temporary separation to entice him into marriage. The most scary moment was when she threatened to reveal Jason's prior sins if he didn't listen. She highlighted a college event that could jeopardize Jason's career. She threatened to call his company's board of directors immediately with her phone. We called the police to remove her from our property. They dragged her away, but she yelled it wasn't over. We're investigating restraining orders against Chloe and Rachel. Jason's parents again intervened, stating we're overreacting and Rachel is emotional since she never got closure from their separation. Jason should meet with Rachel once to discuss things, they said. After that chat, Jason blocked his parents' numbers. Even though I enjoy my profession, the toxic environment has made me ponder leaving. Most people have been supportive, although hushed conversations stop when I enter a room. Some coworkers say they don't want to work with me on projects because of the turmoil. My manager understands, but suggests a new start may be beneficial for my career. Update 3. 3 months have passed, and we've made huge life changes. Jason and I chose to start over in a new city after much deliberation and planning. A West Coast tech company offered me a great opportunity, and Jason's company allowed him transfer to their branch office. Though difficult, we believed it was vital for our mental health and marriage. Jason's parents tried to reconcile one last time before leaving. Dinner at their house was offered. We agreed to go against our better judgment. When we arrived, Chloe and their aunt, who was supposed to mediate, were there. The setup was obvious, yet we stayed to hear them out. It was clear Chloe wasn't sorry when she apologized. She made passive-aggressive statements about family unity and how I turned her brother against her. She described losing everything: her career, her reputation, her connection with her brother, while evading blame. She claimed she was trying to prove who I was when Jason brought up the bogus email account and harassment of male colleagues. The breaking point came when Chloe proposed that we could go on if I admitted that I had overreacted to her fears about me and apologized for firing her. She even offered to help me find a new job provided I dropped my concerns. Jason finally snapped. He accused her of ruining their connection by sabotaging his marriage and my career. He doesn't desire a connection with her until she realizes her mistake and displays contrition. After a month in the new city, we're both happy. My new career is tough and gratifying, and the staff is pleasant. Jason feels calmer than he has in months, and we can now focus on our future instead of family drama. Jason deletes his parents' weekly texts about forgiving Chloe without reading. They sent him childhood photos and talked about Chloe's depression since losing her job to guilt him, but he's sticking to his decision. His father recently tried to reconcile separately, conceding Chloe's actions were wrong but urging forgiveness because she's family. We learned from acquaintances that Rachel got engaged and moved back to her hometown. She's been telling folks she's delighted things worked out because she's with someone who appreciates her. Chloe lives with her parents and is unemployed. She sometimes contacts Jason via phony social media profiles or common friends, but we block them instantly. I occasionally regret the outcome. I remember Jason and his sister being close. However, I realize I didn't start this. I just defended myself from someone trying to ruin my career and marriage. Jason assures me that none of this is my fault, and that we made the correct decision by eliminating toxicity. While the company's lawsuit against Chloe continues, we won't follow it. Our lawyer will handle any interactions, but we're focusing on our new life rather than the past. Our identity is returning. My dad changed my name, my face, and made me live as my dead brother. But when I screamed the truth in front of the police, karma hit fast. My twin brother, Eli, and I were 17 years old when our intoxicated Uber driver drove us into the wrong lane, exceeding the speed limit by 30 miles per hour. They both perished on impact, and I developed cognitive impairment as well as nerve damage in my legs, preventing me from walking correctly. But that turned out to be the least of my concerns. You see, it all started in the hospital. My parents looked at me with disgust, as if I weren't their son who had just survived death. I remember sitting hooked up to equipment for 4 days and only being congratulated once. According to them, I called Uber. I could have canceled with the driver. Eli's death was my fault. They refused to listen to anything else. They dismissed me after 7 days, although the 7th day was particularly weird. After treating me like a killer for the entire week, they suddenly appeared pleasant. I tried to ask why, and their responses about being a happy family again made me uncomfortable. I didn't comprehend what they were doing at first, but once I got home, everything made sense. My father escorted me into Eli's bedroom, where Mom was sorting through Eli's old clothes and assuring me it was a new beginning. Before I could even think, I heard buzzing behind me. When I turned around, Dad grabbed my head and turned it back. "Stay still, Eli." He then proceeded to cut and gel my hair to match Eli's middle part. I recall beginning to cry. It took less than 2 weeks for them to fully recognize me as Eli. They called me his name, inquired about my Eli's friends' well-being, and even displayed new family photos, taking me out of existing ones and leaving only themselves and Eli in the frame. All of this was horrible, but then they did something unforgivable. They brought Lila, Eli's mourning girlfriend, over for supper. She had been with him for 3 years. They had planned to marry following graduation. Lila felt it was very nice of my parents. She assumed they wanted to assist her grief. But when Mom realized I was being referred to as Eli, she was more than just disturbed. She seems really horrified. I noticed her awkwardly speed-running her dinner so she could go as quickly as possible. But that's when my folks began attempting to set us up. "Eli, please sit beside your girlfriend, it is impolite not to." Lila's face turned pale, and I think I died of shame. "Mom, I'm not the..." "Whatever you say, Eli, honey. Now go get Lila another glass of water, please." I glanced at her puzzled. Lila excused herself to the restroom, and as soon as she was out of sight, I heard her escape from the house. I think this was good. Perhaps it will open my parents' eyes a little. But, nope, it made things worse. The next morning, Dad forced me out of my wheelchair. I recall tumbling to the floor as he yelled at me, "Eli doesn't have leg problems. If you weren't in this stupid wheelchair, Lila would have stayed last night." I couldn't believe it. He was blaming me for her departure. Even worse, Mom discovered my concealed cache of medications and flushed them down the drain, telling me that her Eli was never a substance abuser. I cried so much. I implored them to listen. I was also grieving, however they didn't. They left me alone on the floor. Then it occurred. 10 minutes later, I heard, "Eli, honey, come downstairs. Breakfast is ready." That was what shattered me. I've officially given up. For the following few months I went by the name Eli. I wore his clothing, I responded with his name. I started drawing for fun as he used to. But then something occurred. I received a message from Lila. She asked if I was okay. She hadn't stopped thinking about that supper in months and admitted she couldn't help but think I was wrong. That awoke something. I responded, telling her the truth. And shortly, she was inviting me to meet up. We met up at the park that night, and for the first time since it happened, I felt like myself. We talked about grief and everything. She inspired me to rediscover my individuality and play the guitar, which I adored. Before I knew it, I was dragging myself to the basement, where I discovered my old guitar. My hands were clumsy now, and my mind couldn't quite put it together, but it was something. On the 6th-month anniversary, my parents left to inquire about legal name changes. Lila came over, and we played guitar and grieved about the real Eli. But of course, things did not go smoothly. My folks arrived home early and caught us together. Instead of being angry, Mom began gushing about how delighted she was that Eli and Lila had reunited, while Dad inquired as to when Eli had last played guitar. Something within me eventually snapped. "I'm not Eli," I said, "I'm Cal." The fight that ensued was explosive. My parents accused me of seducing my brother's girlfriend and being mentally ill, but Lila supported me. They forced her out of the house and sent me up to Eli's room. But for the first time, I did not attend. I shut myself in my room and did not come out. My father hammered on the door, insisting that I go to Eli's room, but I resisted. Unfortunately, things worsened that night. My parents picked the bedroom lock and looked through my phone. They barred Lila from everything and removed her phone number. They then grabbed my instrument and crushed it in the garden. But that was just the beginning. Because the next morning, I awoke to see an ambulance outside our house. I hurried downstairs and discovered that my mother had attempted suicide. She was being carried away on a stretcher, and physicians said she would require a miracle to survive. My father was sobbing, calling me Cal, hugging me, and begging me to tell him everything was going to be okay. I stood paralyzed as the paramedics loaded the stretcher into the ambulance. My father tightened his grip on my shoulders and shook me gently, his tears dripping into my shirt. The neighbors began gathering on their lawns, muttering and pointing at our house. "Get into the ambulance," Dad said, his voice breaking as he pushed me toward the vehicle. "She needs to see you're here." My legs hardly cooperated as I fought with a high step, so the paramedic assisted me in climbing in. Inside, devices beeped rapidly as 2 EMTs examined my mother's still form. Her face appeared gray, and her lips were blue. One paramedic looked at me and motioned to a tiny seat. "Stay there and hold on tight," she said, refocusing her focus to inserting the IV. Dad climbed in after me, grasping my wrist so tightly it ached. He leaned closer, his breath hot against my ear. "Tell her you're sorry for what you did to us," he said softly, pushing his fingers deeper into my skin. The ambulance lurched forward, sirens blaring. I saw my mother's chest rise and fall to the rhythm of the ventilator. Her eyes flickered open, gazing squarely on me. Their hate made my stomach drop. Her stare locked mine for 3 seconds before rolling back, her body limping again. "She's crashing," exclaimed one paramedic, starting chest compressions. At the hospital, they rushed her through double doors as we were led to a waiting room. Through the narrow windows, I could see physicians and nurses crowding around her gurney. Dad paced back and forth, switching between calling me Cal and Eli in the same sentence. "Cal, why did you?" "No, Eli would never, Cal. You destroyed everything." His phone vibrated. He looked at it, and his face darkened. He pushed the screen in front of me. Lila texted, "I understand what happened. On my way." "You did this," he hissed. "She's coming because you seduced her. Because you couldn't just be who we needed you to be." 20 minutes later, Lila rushed through the emergency room doors, her eyes crimson from crying. She noticed us right away and rushed toward me, but Dad stepped between us, blocking her route. "You need to leave," he stated coldly. "Cal needs help right now," Lila insisted, attempting to move around him. Dad grabbed her arm. "His name is Eli. Let go of me." Lila yanked free, raising her voice. "Check his phone history. They've been deleting my messages for months." The uproar attracted the attention of hospital security. 2 guards approached with hands on their radios. "Is there a problem here?" the larger one inquired. Dad quickly reverted to his concerned dad voice. "This young woman has been stalking my deceased son's identity through my other son. He's confused and vulnerable after the accident, and she's taking advantage." Lila's jaw dropped. "That's not true. Tell them, Cal." I opened my mouth, but the words jumbled in my head. When I was upset, I had difficulty forming phrases due to cognitive damage. I motioned frantically, attempting to explain, but could only spit out fragments. I'm not. Lila knows. See? Dad asked security. He can barely communicate. She's been confusing him, making him think he's someone he's not. Security exchanged glances. Ma'am, we're going to need you to come with us, one said Lila. This is insane, Lila exclaimed, pulling out her phone. I'm recording this. Cal is being abused. Ma'am, please come with us to the security office. We need to sort this out. They escorted the three of us down a hallway to a small office. The security supervisor, a middle-aged woman with lovely eyes, motioned for us to seat. Let's all calm down and explain what's happening, the woman added. Dad instantly launched his version. My son Eli, this is Eli, has been struggling since his twin brother died in an accident. This girl was dating the deceased twin and won't accept that he's gone. She's been manipulating my surviving son. I attempted to speak again, raising my arms to motion. My sleeve rolled up, displaying purple bruises from where Dad had grabbed me earlier. The security supervisor's eyes narrowed slightly. Sir, how did your son get those bruises? Dad did not miss a beat. He falls frequently due to his injuries. We do our best to catch him, but sometimes we grab too hard trying to help. Lila leaned forwards. Those are fingerprint bruises. Cal, show them your other arm. I attempted to obey, but Dad's fingers clamped down on my shoulder. Eli gets confused. The trauma from losing his brother. Stop calling him Eli, Lila exclaimed. The supervisor raised a hand. Young man, can you tell me your name? I concentrated hard and forced my mouth to operate. Cal. He thinks he's his dead brother sometimes, Dad added hurriedly. The doctor said it's the survivor's guilt, manifesting as identity confusion. The supervisor examined us all closely. I think it's best if we let the family deal with this privately, she said, turning to Lila. Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to leave the premises. If you return, we'll contact the police. Lila rose slowly, her phone still recording. Cal, I'm not giving up on you, she told me frankly. I'll find a way to help. Dad also stood, positioning himself between us. If you contact my son again, I'll file harassment charges. He needs to heal without your interference. Security escorted Lila out, while Dad grabbed my arm and led me back to the ER waiting area. Through the window, I noticed Lila in the parking lot, talking on her phone and glancing back at the building. She's going to cause more problems, Dad grumbled. He grabbed out his phone and began making calls. Marlene, it's me. There's been an accident. No, your sister. She tried to. Yes, we're at the hospital now. He went a few feet away, but I could hear him telling different stories to each relative he phoned. According to some, Mom had mistakenly taken too many medicines. To others, she appeared to have had a breakdown over Eli's death. Each story portrayed him as the caring husband, and I as the disturbed son who had driven her to it. A doctor emerged from the ER. Family of Patricia Morrison? Dad hurried over and dragged me with him. How is she? Is my wife okay? She's stable for now, but critical. We've moved her to the ICU. The next 24 hours will be crucial. The doctor looked at me. Is this your son? Yes, this is Eli. Dad replied firmly. The doctor frowned slightly but made no comment. You can see her briefly, one at a time. Dad went first and left me in the waiting area. I sat on the uncomfortable plastic chair, my legs hurting from a lack of pain medicine. I watched the parking lot from the window, hoping to see Lila's car return. When Dad returned, his eyes were crimson. Your turn, Eli. Tell your mother you love her. I dragged myself along the corridor toward the ICU. Mom lay surrounded by machinery, with tubes flowing everywhere. Her chest moved automatically, rising and falling. I stood there, unsure what to say to someone who had attempted to obliterate me. A nurse softly massaged my shoulder. You can talk to her. Sometimes they can hear. I leaned in. Mom, it's Cal. Your son, Cal. Her eyes sprung open, staring on me with the same contempt. Her hand twitched towards me, fingers clutching at the air. The monitors began blaring rapidly. I think you should go, the nurse stated hastily as she checked the machines. Back in the waiting room, Dad was on the phone with someone. Yes, we'll need to make arrangements. No, Eli is handling it well. Yes, just like his brother would have wanted. Hours have passed. Dad finally agreed we should go home and promised to return in the morning. The journey was quiet, save for his occasional mumbling about Lila and her interference. At home, he led me straight to the kitchen and seated me in Eli's normal chair. "We need to maintain normalcy," he remarked. "Your mother would want that." He reheated the leftover casserole and placed it in front of me. I picked at it, my hunger gone. Dad sat across from me and stared carefully. "Tomorrow we'll deal with the Lila situation properly," he told me. "But tonight, you need to remember who you are. You're Eli. You've always been Eli." I pushed the plate away. "Dad, Don't." His tone was stern. "Not tonight. Your mother is fighting for her life because you couldn't just be what we needed." He stood abruptly, grabbed my plate and pouring it into the sink. "Go to your room, Eli's room." My legs shook as I used the table to pull myself up. As I walked past the living room, I noticed something strange. The family photos had been rearranged again. There were now clones of Eli everywhere, some of which were blatantly edited to depict him at ages he had never reached. I made my way upstairs, each step sending sharp sensations through my wounded nerves. The manipulated images appeared to show me climbing Eli's face, multiplying and aging into futures he would never see. My bedroom door was open, with the lock mechanism totally gone from the frame. Fresh tool marks marred the wood where Dad had worked. Inside, further changes awaited. My remaining clothes were gone from the closet, replaced entirely by Eli's wardrobe. The walls showcased his artwork, trophies, and life. Even the bedding had been replaced to his preferred navy blue set. I collapsed into bed, fatigued and defeated. The home fell into an unsettling silence. Through the thin walls, I could hear Dad opening and closing his bedroom drawers, followed by deliberate and heavy footsteps on the stairs. He appeared in my doorway clutching a medical bottle. "Your mother's sleeping pills," he explained, shaking them. "The doctor prescribed these after Eli died. She couldn't sleep and kept having nightmares about the accident." He placed the bottle on the nightstand. "Maybe they'll help you rest. Help you think more clearly." The suggestion was that we either took the drugs voluntarily, or he would find another method. I grabbed for the bottle with shaky fingers, pretending to take one but palming it instead. Dad waited until I swallowed, then nodded in approval. "Good night, Eli. Tomorrow will be better." He pulled the door shut. I heard him lugging something heavy across the hallway, repositioning the bookshelf against my door. Not locked in, but certainly blocked. I spit the medication into my hand and hid it in the pillowcase. Of course, my phone was gone. The landline in Eli's room had been unplugged months before. I lay in the dark, listening to the house and making plans. Lila was out there trying to help. Mrs. Alston next door had spotted something. Everyone knew something was awry. All I had to do was endure until someone could act. Around 3 a.m., I awoke to the sound of my father's voice, low and frantic on the phone. I pressed my ear on the floor, collecting pieces. "Need to move quickly." "Yes, the papers are ready. She's still unconscious, but I understand the risks." Footsteps on the stairs drove me crawling back into bed. Dad pushed the bookcase aside and glanced in to see if I was sleeping. I forced myself to breathe deeply and evenly until he retreated. Morning arrived too quickly. Dad appeared with breakfast and more medications, watching me swallow them. This time I was unable to disguise it. He looked beneath my tongue and made me drink a full glass of water. The drug made everything blurry, but not so much that you missed what happened next. "Get dressed," he said, laying down the garments. "We're going to see your mother. Then we have appointments." The clothing were Eli's nicest attire, which he had worn to junior prom. I struggled into them with Dad watching, fixing the neck and smoothing the sleeves. He produced Eli's watch and carefully fastened it on my wrist. "Perfect," he muttered. "Just perfect." The drive to the hospital was spent in a drugged haze. Dad kept up a steady stream of speech, addressing me exclusively as Eli and reminding me of our memories. How we had learned to ride bikes together, how thrilled we were when Mom got her promotion, and how we had always been the ideal family. Mom remained unconscious but stable while in the ICU. Dad spoke to her as if she could hear, telling her how well Eli was doing and how he was finally embracing who he was intended to be. The nurses exchanged awkward glances but did not say anything. "We have to go," Dad said after 15 minutes. "Eli has an appointment with Dr. Catherine." I was unfamiliar with Dr. Catherine. Dad led me through unknown hospital halls to a completely different wing, the psychiatric unit. My blood chilled when we checked in at a security counter. Dr. Catherine, a small woman with piercing eyes, specialized in identity issues. It appears that Dad had previously briefed her thoroughly. She addressed me as Eli from the outset, inquiring about my recollections and how I felt about losing Cal. I tried to correct her and explain, but the words came out garbled. The drug, along with my cognitive difficulties, made complicated concepts practically impossible to express. Dad sat beside me and occasionally translated my attempts at speaking. He's been confused since the accident, Dad stated calmly. Sometimes he thinks he's Cal. It's a coping mechanism. The previous doctor said survivor's guilt manifested as identity replacement. Dr. Catherine made notes and nodded sympathetically. It's not uncommon for twins to lose, she told me. The surviving twin may feel they need to become both people to keep their sibling alive. That's not what I'm not, I struggled to say. It's okay, Eli, she whispered softly. We're going to help you work through this confusion. Your father has arranged for regular sessions. The appointment lasted 1 hour. By the conclusion, I realized, with increasing horror, that Dad had found the ideal professional ally. Dr. Catherine truly believed she was treating a twin who was mourning and confused about his identity. Every objection I made only served to cement her diagnosis. Back in the car, Dad beamed with delight. She's very good. Came highly recommended. 3 sessions a week to start, then we'll see. Next, we stopped at a law office. Dad abandoned me in the car, the windows cracked like I was a dog. Through the glass, I saw him signing papers and shaking hands with a man dressed in an expensive suit. When he returned, he carried a folder. Just some paperwork, he replied casually. Nothing for you to worry about, Eli. The following stop was much worse. The DMV. Dad handed documentation to update my identification. The clerk appeared perplexed as he checked computer records. I show Cal Morrison at this address, not Eli, she went on. There's been a terrible mix-up since the accident, Dad continued, passing over official-looking documents. My son Eli survived, not Cal. The hospital made an error in their initial reports. We've been trying to correct it everywhere. The clerk analyzed the paper's death certificate modifications, doctor's notes, and legal affidavits, all of which stated that Eli Morrison, not Cal, had survived the accident. My hands shook as I attempted to speak up, but Dad's grasp on my shoulder was ironclad. He's still recovering, Dad explained sheepishly. The trauma makes it hard for him to communicate. They took my photo and printed a new ID. It read, Eli Morrison. Cal Morrison had officially died. The drive home was silent. I glanced at the ID card in my hands, labeled with my deceased brother's name. Dad hummed cheerfully, pleased with his morning's labor. At home, I noticed further changes. Workers were putting something on my bedroom windows. Decorative bars, Dad clarified. For aesthetic purposes. They resembled the security bars I had seen on ground floor windows in poor neighborhoods. Just to match the historical character of the house, Dad said effortlessly. Mrs. Alston stood in her yard, watching the installation with considerable worry. She caught my eye and murmured something I couldn't understand. Dad noticed and walked between us, waving happily. Afternoon, Mrs. Alston, just some home improvements. She did not return the wave. Inside, Dad showed me the schedule he had made for doctor's visits, therapy sessions, and family activities. Every aspect of my day was planned and accounted for. There's no mention of school. Apparently, Eli was taking a year off to grieve. We'll get through this together, Dad promised, pinning the timetable on the fridge. You'll see soon, you won't even remember wanting to be anyone else. The drugs caused the afternoon to blur together. Dad made me rehearse Eli's signature repeatedly till my hand cramped. He showed me previous recordings of Eli and pointed out the gestures I should adopt. When I fell asleep, he awoke me to take more medication. Dinner was Eli's favorite meal. Dad had even purchased the exact soda brand that Eli favored. He watched every mouthful I took and corrected how I held my fork. Remember, Eli was left-handed for eating. I was not. However, I struggled to adapt to dropping meals and fumbling with utensils. Dad's patience had worn thin. You're not trying, he charged. Eli will try harder. After dinner, Dad asked me to sit in the living room while he contacted relatives. Each discussion was a performance of him talking about how well Eli was doing, how therapy was helping, and how grateful they were for everyone's help. I sat silently, banned from speaking, the medications making everything seem remote and surreal. Around 8 o'clock the doorbell rang. Dad frowned, not expecting anybody. Through the peephole he noticed two policemen. His face became carefully neutral. "Officers," he responded, opening the door halfway. "Can I help you?" "We're following up on a welfare check request," the older cop explained. "We need to speak with Cal Morrison." "I'm afraid there's been a misunderstanding," Dad responded smoothly. "Cal died in a car accident 7 months ago. I'm here with my surviving son, Eli." Officers exchanged looks. "Sir, we have conflicting reports. We need to see your son." Dad hesitated before stepping aside. "Of course, Eli's right here. He's been struggling with some confusion since the accident survivor's guilt. His doctor says it's quite common." The policeman entered and examined me closely. The younger one was familiar. He had been here previously during the prior welfare check. His gaze narrowed at my look. "Son, could you tell us your name?" the senior officer inquired. I opened my mouth, battling against the pharmaceutical fog. Dad squeezed my shoulder as a warning. I began, then rushed out. "Cal. I'm Cal." He's confused. Dad swiftly interjected. "His psychiatrist, Dr. Catherine, can explain. I have her card right here." He pulled it from his wallet. "She's treating him for identity confusion following his twin's death." The cops grabbed the card, but the younger one continued to watch me. "Those bars on the bedroom windows, those new ones?" He was curious. "Just installed today," Dad verified. "Decorative. Eli's been having nightmares, sleepwalking. It's for his safety." "Can we speak to him privately?" the older cop inquired. Dad strengthened his grip. "I'd prefer to stay. He gets agitated when he's confused. Last time he hurt himself." But the officers insisted. Dad reluctantly moved into the kitchen, but I could sense him hanging just out of sight. The young officer sat across from me, his voice quiet. "I remember you from before," he remarked quietly. "You looked different. Healthier. What's happening here?" I tried to explain, but the words tangled with the tablets, causing confusion and continuous correction. Everything tangled together. I was able to get out fragments about the ID change, doctor visits, and medicines. "Are you taking medication voluntarily?" inquired the doctor. I shake my head. Then nodded. Then shake it again. It was complicated. Dad didn't push them down my mouth, but refusal was not an option either. The officer made notes. "Has anyone hurt you physically?" I began to reveal the bruises, but Dad reappeared. "Officers, I think this is upsetting him. As you can see, he's well cared for, fed, clothed, and receiving medical attention. His mother is in the ICU. We're all under tremendous stress." "What happened to his mother?" the older officer inquired. Dad's face contorted with trained sadness. She tried to hurt herself. The loss of Cal was too much. That's why I'm being so careful with Eli. I can't lose anyone else." The story included a perfect weeping father, a damaged surviving son, and a family shattered by tragedy. The policeman's expressions softened visibly. They asked a few more questions, took some notes, and then prepared to depart. "If you need anything," the younger cop told me, "you can always call." But we all knew I couldn't be without a phone, privacy, or a way to communicate. They left their cards anyhow, and Dad instantly pocketed them. He closed the door and said, "That was unfortunate," coldly. "Lila's doing, I assume. We'll have to be more careful." He upped my meds that night. I strained to remain conscious, knowing that each day I lost more of myself. I could see Mrs. Alston's house from my window. Her living room light remained on unusually late, and I wondered whether she was watching, waiting, or plotting something. The next morning brought new obstacles. Dad woke me up early for therapy with Dr. Catherine. I could scarcely walk due to overmedication and exhaustion. He virtually carried me to the car. "You need to do better today," he warned. "Show her you're making progress, accepting who you are." But I could not. Throughout the session I battled to affirm my identity, slurring out "Cal" whenever she called me Eli. Dr. Catherine took detailed notes, occasionally looking at Dad with concern. "He seems more resistant today," she commented. "Has anything changed?" "The police came by last night," Dad revealed. "Someone made a false welfare check request. It agitated him and brought back the confusion." "I see." She adjusted her spectacles. "Eli, do you understand why people are worried about you?" "Not, Eli," I replied. "This level of resistance is concerning," she informed Dad. We might need to consider a more intensive treatment approach. There's an excellent inpatient program that specializes in identity disorders. Dad leaned forward with interest. Inpatient? A few weeks of structured environment, proper medication management, intensive therapy could help break through this fixation on being Cal. They talked about me like I wasn't there, planned my erasure in clinical terms. I tried to protest, but my words seemed useless. The treatment was succeeding. After the appointment, Dad drove to a different pharmacy than our usual one. This was across town. He went in alone and returned with additional bottles, different tablets, different colors. Dr. Catherine adjusted your prescriptions, he explained. These should help with the confusion. At home, I discovered Lila's car parked down the street. Dad noticed it too, his jaw tightening. He hurried me inside and double-locked the door. Within minutes, his phone rang. Number she can't see him. I don't care what she claims. Harassment? Yes. I'll file charges. Through the living room window, I saw Lila arguing on her phone. She looked up, seen me, and waved wildly. I raised my hand just before Dad dragged me away from the window. You don't communicate with her, he snapped. She's poisoned. She's the reason you're confused. He made me take the new tablets right away. These were different and powerful. Within an hour, I could hardly keep my eyes open. Dad sat me down on the couch and played videos of Eli's voice, laugh and motions on repeat as I drifted in and out of consciousness. Watch and learn, Dad said. Remember who you are. The doorbell rang again. Through my daze, I could hear Dad talking with someone in Lila's mother's voice and threatening legal action. Dad's calm approach to harassment, restraining orders, and medical privacy. The door shut solidly. Time became stretchy. Hours or minutes passed between blinks. Dad fed me soup at one time. More tablets. Water. The films continued showing Eli at birthday parties and school functions, alive and laughing, and being all I was supposed to be. Night fell. Dad assisted me up the stairs, as my legs were barely functional. The bedroom bars created jail shadows on the walls. He tucked me in like a child, smoothing off the sheets and adjusting the pillow. Tomorrow we're seeing a specialist about the inpatient program, he told me. It's for the best, Eli. You'll see. He left the door open because it was pointless to close it after the bookcase was back in place. I laid there battling the drugs and trying to think. Inpatient meant locked wards. There are no visitors. Complete control. I disappear completely. Through the fog, I heard a quiet tapping. It took tremendous effort to turn my head. Mrs. Alston stood outside my barred window, holding up a piece of paper. Blink if you need help, it said. I blinked furiously. She nodded and held up another sign. Tomorrow. Be ready. She vanished before I could understand what that meant. Be prepared for what? How could I be prepared for anything when I could barely move? Sleep took me under, but not before I heard Dad on the phone again, making plans. Yes, tomorrow afternoon. Evaluation and possible admission. I have all the documentation. Dad was already dressed and organized when the morning arrived. He prepared a backpack, just in case the evaluation leads to immediate admission. Eli's clothes, Eli's toiletries, Eli's life is carefully stored away. Take your pills, he said me, watching me take each one. We want you to calm the doctors. But there was something odd about these drugs. The colors were correct, yet something felt wrong in my mouth. I swallowed them anyway. I had no choice, with Dad watching. We ate breakfast in quiet. Dad checked his watch frequently, concerned about the timing. The facility is 2 hours away, he clarified. We need to leave soon. Use the bathroom, he said. It's a long drive. I complied and moved gently. But in the restroom, I discovered the pills weren't working as well as they usually did. My mind felt clearer, not worse. Has anything happened to them? Back in the kitchen, Dad was putting my suitcase in the car. Mrs. Alston was watching from her garden, as I noticed through the window. When our eyes met, she gave a small nod. Time to go, Dad said, returning for me. This is a good thing, Eli. You'll get the help you need. He walked me to the car, his hand firmly on my elbow. I moved slowly, exaggerating the medicine effects I should have been experiencing. As we approached the driveway, everything happened at once. Lila's automobile roared around the bend. Mrs. Alston came out of her house with 2 other neighbors. And strange van drew up behind Dad's automobile and blocked it in. What in the hell? Dad's grip tightened uncomfortably. Lila jumped out, followed by her mother and a woman dressed professionally clutching a clipboard. The neighbors formed a loose circle, their phones out and recording. "Mr. Morrison," the professional woman announced. "I'm Victoria Peters from Adult Protective Services. We need to speak with you about Cal." "His name is Eli," Dad continued, attempting to draw me toward the automobile, but the van blocked our route. "We have documentation that suggests otherwise," Victoria explained, advancing gently. "Including affidavits from neighbors about concerning behavior." Mrs. Alston came forward. "I replaced his pills last night," she told me, "with vitamins. I've been watching this family for months, documenting everything." Dad's face turned white, then red. "You broke into my house. That's illegal." "So are false imprisonment and identity theft," Lila's mother countered. "We have Cal's original birth certificate, his medical records, and everything proving who he really is." Dad tugged me harder, attempting to withdraw to the house. But more neighbors had arrived, blocking that as well. We were surrounded by eyewitnesses. "This is kidnapping," Dad exclaimed. "I'm calling the police." "Please do," Victoria replied quietly. "We've already notified them about the situation. They're on their way." I sensed Dad's control weakening. His carefully built reality was collapsing beneath the weight of planned intervention. These individuals had planned and orchestrated it. The pills, the timing, the witnesses. Everything was meant to catch him in the act of dragging me away. "Cal!" Lila shouted out. "Tell us your name, your real name!" Dad placed his hand over my mouth, but I pulled away. For the first time in months, I felt clear enough to talk. "My name is Cal Morrison," I announced loudly. "This man has been forcing me to pretend to be my dead brother, Eli." The words shattered something in Dad. He shoved me away so violently that I tumbled onto the driveway. Lila charged forward while he retreated, pointing at all of us. "You don't understand," he exclaimed. "I was saving him. Cal unalived Eli. He deserved to die instead." Victoria was already on the phone, updating the oncoming cops. The neighbors kept recording. Mrs. Alston knelt beside me to inspect for injuries. "I've been watching since that dinner with Lila," she admitted quietly. "Your mother told me weeks ago what was happening. Asked me to watch out for you. I'm sorry it took so long to act." Dad had reached the house and slammed the door. Through the windows, we could see him moving rapidly, most likely erasing evidence. It did not matter. Too many people had witnessed too much. Police sirens sounded in the background, getting closer. Lila clutched my hand while her mother talked to Victoria about emergency custody arrangements. The neighbors remained vigilant, ensuring Dad couldn't escape out the back. "It's over," Lila said quietly. "You're safe now." But I knew it wasn't so easy. There'd be inquiries, investigations, legal battles. Dad had documentation declaring my death. Doctors assumed I was Eli. The truth would take time to unravel. The cops arrived in 3 cars, their lights flashing. They set up a perimeter while one cop approached with a loudspeaker, calling for Dad to go quietly. I briefed them on the situation as paramedics examined me. "We need to take you for evaluation," one paramedic explained gently. "Standard procedure after medication tampering and potential abuse." I nodded, fatigued but clear-minded. As they placed me onto a gurney, I noticed activity within the home. Dad appeared in an upper window of my bedroom. He had removed one of the ornamental bars and was attempting to squeeze through. "He's attempting to exit the 2nd floor," a cop radioed. Dad made it halfway out before becoming trapped. He dangled there, yelling about his rights, Eli, and the injustice of the situation. It would have been funny if it hadn't been so pitiful. They soon pulled him down in handcuffs, but he insisted I was Eli. As the police car drove away with him inside, I felt a relief in my chest. The performance was over. I could quit pretending to be dead. "I'll follow you to the hospital," Lila said as the ambulance doors closed. This time, however, the ride was different. No one asked that I apologize. Nobody insists on phony names. Just concerned professionals using my genuine name, asking about my real medical history, and treating me as if I existed. At the hospital, the examination was thorough, yet gentle. They documented injuries, collected blood samples to identify the drugs in my system, and performed cognitive tests. A social worker sat with me and explained each process. "The pills your father was giving you," according to the doctor afterwards, "were a cocktail of psychiatric medications, antipsychotics, sedatives, mood stabilizers. No wonder you struggled to communicate. They wanted to keep me for observation so that I could safely withdraw from the drugs. I accepted, too tired to object. Lila and her family were in the waiting area, along with Victoria from APS. "Your Aunt Marlene is flying in," she told me. "She's petitioned for emergency custody. Given the circumstances, it should be approved quickly." I thought about Aunt Marlene, who had attempted to help but had seen through Dad's deception. Perhaps with her, I might begin to reconstruct who Cal Morrison was supposed to be. That night, in a hospital bed with my true name on the chart, I slept without medication for the first time in months. There are no videos of Eli playing on repeat. Nobody insisted I was someone else. Only solitude and the steady restoration of myself. The news would immediately spread throughout our community. The narrative was too bizarre, too horrifying to keep hidden. But that was tomorrow's concern. Tonight, I was Cal Morrison, alive and recognized, and that was enough. The withdrawal impacted me harder than I anticipated. By the second day, my hands were trembling uncontrollably, and sweat leaked through the hospital gown. The nurses checked on me hourly, adjusting IV fluids and monitoring vital signs. Throughout it all, Lila remained on the visitor's chair, departing only when compelled by visiting hours. On day 3, Aunt Marlene arrived. She burst into tears just looking at me, pulling me into a delicate hug that avoided my IV lines. She smelled like vanilla candles and freshly laundered clothes. Normal things. Things are safe. "I tried calling so many times," she said quietly. "Your father always had excuses why you couldn't talk." The social worker arrived carrying documentation, emergency custody forms, medical authorizations, and insurance documents. Aunt Marlene signed everything as I watched. "My signature is still too shaky to be legal," the social worker stated. "The next steps include police interviews, psychological tests, and perhaps criminal charges against Dad. The district attorney wants to meet with you when you're stronger," she told me. "Your father is being held without bail. The identity theft charges alone are serious." 2 detectives arrived that afternoon. They delivered images of the house and evidence bags with the forged paperwork Dad had made. They asked detailed questions and recorded everything, while Lila held my hand. I showed them the scars from when Dad grabbed me and the areas where my hair was still coming back incorrectly from his styling attempts. "We found journals," one detective reported. "Your father documented his plans. It goes back months before your mother's attempt." The psychiatrist who handled my case was nothing like Dr. Catherine. Dr. Layton listened when I spoke. He did not call me Eli. Did not try to persuade me I was puzzled. Instead, he explained how trauma and medicine had impacted my brain. "The cognitive impairment from the accident made you vulnerable," he told me. "Your father exploited that vulnerability. None of this was your fault." Mom awoke on day 4. The ICU called to alert us, but stressed that she was still vulnerable. Aunt Marlene went first, and she returned with red eyes and quivering hands. "She's asking for you," she informed me. "She knows who you are. She called you Cal." The walk to the ICU seemed forever. Mom appeared smaller than I recalled, swallowed by equipment and blankets. Her eyes met mine quickly, brimming with tears. "Cal," she muttered. "My Cal. I'm so sorry." I sat gingerly at the edge of her bed. She stretched for my hand with quivering fingers, her hold scarcely visible but firm. "I tried to stop him," she explained. "The note I wanted you to know." "Mrs. Alston told me," I explained, "about asking her to watch out for me." Mom nodded weakly. "I was too weak. Too scared. But I never forgot who you were." The nurses limited our visit, but Mom squeezed my hand as I departed. "You're Cal," she reiterated. "Always Cal." More people entered my room. The principal of my old school arrived with cards from classmates. Some of Eli's real pals arrived awkwardly but with genuine concern. They shared stories about the real Eli, which helped me distinguish between my brother and the role I was obliged to give. Mrs. Alston arrived with homemade soup and a big folder. "Evidence," she stated, patting it. "Every incident I witnessed, every scream I heard, every time I see you trying to signal for help." The folder had dated images, comprehensive notes, and audio recordings from her phone. She had been preparing a case for months, waiting for the proper time to act. "Your mother came to me 2 weeks before her attempt," Mrs. Alston explained. "She was planning to leave. To take you somewhere safe. But then..." Physical therapy began on day 5. My legs had deteriorated more due to the drugs and seclusion. The therapist delivered a walker and taught me exercises to help me develop strength. Lila attended every session, applauding on minor accomplishments like standing alone for 30 seconds. The police returned with updates. They found more evidence at the house, including hidden cameras in my room, recordings of Dad teaching me to be Eli, and forged medical records. The identity theft went deeper than anyone expected. He'd been slowly transferring your assets, the detective explained. Your Social Security benefits from the accident, everything into accounts under Eli's name. He was planning to have you committed permanently. Aunt Marlene handled the legal issues while I focused on recuperation. She engaged an attorney to resolve the identity theft, restore my legal status, and retrieve the stolen monies. The lawyer came by every day with updates and documents that required my progressively steadying signature. Dr. Martinez, who had been there at the original accident, was appalled by what had occurred. He ordered new cognitive tests and compared them to my post-accident baseline. Your father's drugs genuinely harmed your cognitive performance, he claimed. With good therapy, you should be able to recover the majority of what you lost. Group therapy began in week 2, with 2 other survivors of family violence sharing their tales, which made mine seem less unusual. The therapist specialized in identity abuse, something I had never idea existed. What your father did has a name, she clarified. Imposed identity. It's a form of psychological abuse where the victim is forced to become someone else. Mom was moved to the psychiatric ward for her own healing. We held joint meetings twice a week to work through the tangled web of grief, guilt, and survival. She told me that the night before her attempt, Dad had shown her the formal paperwork announcing my death. I couldn't pretend anymore, she explained. Seeing your name on a death certificate, I broke. The criminal case progressed steadily. Dad's counsel pressed for an insanity defense, stating that grief had led him to believe I was Eli. However, the evidence revealed too much preparation and purposeful conduct. The prosecutor felt confident in the conviction. Lila began visiting during school hours, bringing homework, gossip, and other typical adolescent topics. She helped me relearn guitar with my crippled hands, and we celebrated when I was able to complete a full chord progression without faltering. The real Eli would be so angry, she once said, about what your dad did using his memory like that. Aunt Marlene discovered a rental home near her own, close enough to provide assistance, while yet distant enough to allow for freedom. She brought me shopping for clothes of my own choosing. Nothing had ever belonged to Eli. The simple process of choosing a shirt felt revolutionary. The insurance company eventually authorized a new wheelchair that was correctly tailored to my current demands. The physical therapist showed me how to travel with it and build upper body strength while my legs healed. Small successes accumulated, such as transferring independently, navigating stairs with minimal assistance, and standing long enough to make a sandwich. Dad's trial date was set for 6 months away. The prosecutor cautioned me that it would be difficult, that I would have to testify and recount everything in court. But I wanted to confront him, to recover my tale from his perspective. Mom improved gradually. The suicide attempt had damaged her liver, necessitating continuous care, but she actively participated in therapy, attempting to comprehend how she had encouraged Dad's delusions. Our connection would never be straightforward, but it was genuine. I see you, she stated during one session. Calendar. My son. Cal. School remained a question mark. I had missed too much to graduate with my class, and my cognitive difficulties made taking regular classes difficult. The district provided alternatives, such as online classes, adjusted timetables, and more time to earn my degree. Lila helped me navigate the alternatives and was tolerant with my processing problems. The house went up for sale. Mom and I couldn't return because there were too many spirits in each room. Aunt Marlene oversaw the packing, keeping what was important, and donating the rest. She discovered my old items stashed in the basement, including photos Dad had cut me from and outfits he had discarded. He attempted to obliterate proof of my existence. Mrs. Alston formed a local support network of people who had seen Dad's public performances and thought something was amiss but didn't know what to do. They exchanged their observations, which contributed to the case against him. One woman recalls meeting me at the grocery store and how Dad responded when she asked me straight questions. Another remembered how bewildered and disoriented I appeared when he presented me as Eli at the bank. Small moments contributed to a bigger image of systematic abuse. My hands became stronger, making it easier to play the guitar. Muscle memory returned in shards, revealing previous songs through the fog of drugs and stress. Lila and I played together in the hospital courtyard, and other patients stopped to listen. Dr. Layton altered only 2 of my legal meds, for nerve pain and minor anxiety. Nothing clouded my mind or stole my words. I could think clearly for the first time in months, despite my ongoing cognitive difficulties. Legal documentation arrived monthly, restoring my identity, reversing the death certificate, and recovering stolen benefits. Each article proved that Cal Morrison existed, had always existed, and would continue to exist. Dad's family contacted us through attorneys, claiming we were being unkind and that grief had led him to a breakdown. But they hadn't experienced it, hadn't been gradually wiped and replaced. Their mails remained unanswered. Physical milestones include walking 10 feet with a cane, standing for a full shower, and climbing stairs without rest. The therapist chronicled everything, including evidence of recovery that felt like a defiance of what Dad had tried to impose on me. During our sessions, Mom began discussing the future, where she may live after discharge, and how we might rebuild a connection. She showed me apartment listings near Aunt Marlene that were small but clean, and offered her a fresh start. "I want to be your mother again," she explained. "If you'll let me. The real you." The prosecutor and I met on a regular basis, as we prepared for trial. She showed me Dad's journals, which described his ambitions to change me into Eli. The delusion was deep, but deliberate. Every step is purposeful and documented. He knew exactly what he was doing, she explained. This wasn't grief. This was control. When I was discharged, Lila's parents offered me their guest room, but Aunt Marlene had already set one up. She had painted it green, which is my favorite color, not Eli's. Simple furniture, nothing that contained recollections. A blank slate on which to develop. The discharge date approached with mixed emotions. The hospital had become safe and orderly, free of the mayhem Dad had caused. But staying meant not progressing, not regaining the life he attempted to steal. Dr. Layton devised an outpatient plan that included continued treatment, regular medication management, ongoing physical rehabilitation, support groups for identity abuse survivors, trauma processing, family reconstruction, and a roadmap to reclaiming myself. Lila helped me pack my few items, including the clothes Aunt Marlene had purchased, get-well cards from students, and the guitar I was relearning. Dad was unable to eliminate the small proofs of existence. "You're going to be okay," she assured. And for the first time, I thought it might be true. Mom was carried down from the psychiatric unit to say her final goodbyes on the morning of her discharge. She appeared healthier and more present, like the mother I recalled from before Eli died. "I'll see you soon," she vowed. "At therapy. At Aunt Marlene's, wherever you're comfortable." The drive to Aunt Marlene's seemed strange. Familiar streets, but a different environment leading to a future Dad had not been scripted. The rental place was small yet bright, and it accommodated my mobility needs. My chamber awaited green walls and empty shelves to be filled with my own personal items. That first night, I sat with my guitar in the peaceful bedroom. My fingers discovered chords slowly but steadily, muscle memory battling residual injury. Not Eli's tunes, or Dad's demands for my own music. Imperfect, but real. Lila texted, "Good night." Mom called from the hospital. Aunt Marlene checked in twice. Mrs. Alston had left the soup in the refrigerator. Dad attempted to sever a network of support, which was gradually rebuilt. Tomorrow would bring challenges, more treatment, legal proceedings, and the long process of recovering identity. Dad's trial loomed, and his delusions persisted in every interaction. Recovery was neither linear nor uncomplicated. But tonight, I was Cal Morrison, injured but not obliterated. Surviving in my own body and under my own name. The performance was over, the true labor of life had only begun. My jealous sister yelled, "This is my day," at her baby shower after I revealed my twin pregnancy. Then my mom slapped me in front of 20 guests. I was heading across Buffalo University's stage, ready to receive my degree, when I heard my sister scream at the top of her lungs. Sabrina had collapsed on the floor and was hyperventilating. The entire ceremony was canceled. Paramedics raced in. She had always been an attention-seeking hoe. She fainted in the front row of my first piano recital at the age of 12. Prom night, when I was proclaimed queen, a phony heart attack scare. Every big event. It wasn't until 3 years later, when I received an invitation to her baby shower, that I saw an opportunity to bite back. My spouse was alongside me when I opened it, and I instantly began rubbing against him. "We're trying for a baby," I whispered in his ear. "Really? I thought we were waiting." "Now. We're trying now." The math was precise. I had about 3 cycles to get pregnant for the timing to work. Her party was in 3 months. I had to act quickly, The first test was negative. I stared at that one line. The second month was negative again. I was resting in the dark room with gel on my belly when the ultrasound technician became quiet and pushed the wand around. "Congratulations, it's twins." I really laughed. Over the next few months, I became Sabrina's biggest supporter. Anything to get her excited for what that hoe imagined would be her big moment. "Oh my gosh, girl, you need a countdown on Instagram. I'll design it." I posted daily. 5 months until my sister becomes a mom. I insisted on inviting everyone I knew, promising them all gifts and attention. When she posted her baby name online, I knew I had done the right thing. Isla Aurora, a name I wrote in my diary when I was 15 and had never told anyone about. That bitch had passed through my room. So on the morning of her party, I curled her hair and smiled extra sweetly, and it took everything I had not to laugh when she became overly emotional. If only one of us got to be pregnant, I'm glad it's me. Even mom said it's better this way since I'm the prettier sister. The photos will actually be worth framing, you know what I mean? I delicately painted her lips. "You deserve this. No interruptions this time," she said. "This is my day." Absolutely. If there's one thing my bitch sister can do, it's throw a great party. There were gorgeous balloons and a 3-tiered cake. Even though everyone knew from her post that it was a girl, she insisted on performing the entire reveal performance again. I was wearing a flowy dress, but you could see my bump if you looked closely enough. Nobody was looking at me, however. Not yet. Or so I thought, until Sabrina took our mother aside. "God, look at Claire. She's gotten huge. If I didn't know better, I'd think she was the pregnant one." She giggled. "Well, you've always been the thin one, honey. Good thing too, for the photos." When they were finished giggling, the countdown began. 3, 2, 1, pop. Pink confetti everywhere. "It's a girl," Sabrina said. Everyone cheered. Cameras flashed. To be honest, I was prepared to stand up and spoil everyone's mood with my announcement. But that's when my morning sickness became severe. I dashed to the restroom, hand over mouth. When I came back out, everyone looked at me with concern. The words tumbled forth. Sorry, I exclaimed, startled. "It's just the twins. They've been making me so sick. 6 weeks with twins, and I can't keep anything down." The quiet was deafening. Then there was an explosion. "Twins?" Aunt Martha screamed. "Oh my gosh, Claire!" The crowd shifted like a tidal away from Sabrina and towards me. Hands reached for my stomach. Questions came at me from all directions. "When did you find out? Do twins run in your family? Are they identical?" Sabrina's cheeks turned pink, then scarlet, and finally purple. I saw her chest start heaving. I prepared myself for the performance. I can't breathe," she whispered, holding her chest. "Someone help." But everyone was around me. Even her husband was asking me about twin strollers. "Hello?" Sabrina yelled. "I'm having a panic attack. This is my party." Mom looked over displeased. "Sabrina, honey, not now. Claire's having twins. At her first pregnancy." Sabrina lost it. I actually lost it. She grabbed the cake knife and for a few seconds, I thought I was going to die at the baby shower. "This is my day," she exclaimed, mascara running. "Mine. I've been trying for 3 years." Liam grabbed Sabrina's wrist and yanked the knife out of her grasp while she stood still, her entire body shivering as if she were suffering a seizure. Sabrina's legs gave out completely, and the knife clattered to the floor and kicked beneath the dessert table. She dropped to her knees and began weeping so loudly that the neighbors 3 houses down were likely to hear it. Her mascara poured down her face in thick black streaks as she banged her fists on the floor, yelling that I ruined everything, that I always ruin everything, and that today was meant to be her special day. Mom raced over and put her arms around Sabrina, rocking her back and forth, utterly ignoring me as I stood there in disbelief, palm on my belly. At least 20 phones were pointed at us, with everyone recording the entire meltdown as if it were a reality show. Liam managed to push Sabrina into a chair, where she sat hyperventilating, her chest heaving up and down so quickly that I feared she'd pass out. He muttered something in her ear repeatedly, perhaps to calm her down, while the rest of the visitors milled around awkwardly, unsure where to look or what to do. Ethan grabbed my arm and dragged me to the door, his face totally white. He asked if I was okay and that we needed to leave right now before things worsened. That's when Mom charged in and smacked me hard across the face, the sound ringing around the room like a gunshot. She screamed that I was a selfish bitch who couldn't let Sabrina have a single day without making it all about me. Except for Sabrina's crying, the room fell silent, and I heard several others gasp as they realized what had happened. My cheek burned like fire, and I stroked it unconsciously, feeling the heat travel across my face. Ethan stepped up between Mom and me, urging her to back off, or he'd call the cops himself. Olivia stepped next to me and shouted, loudly enough for everyone to hear, that she would phone 911 if anyone else touched me. Thomas eventually pushed past the mob, looking like he'd seen a ghost, and stared at what his family had become. Sabrina abruptly stooped over and threw up all over the floor, splashing yellow liquid over her nice shoes. Liam sprang up and said they needed to go to the hospital right now since she was having contractions from the stress. Mom quickly pointed at me and yelled, "If Sabrina loses her baby, it will be my fault," her voice echoing around the backyard. Liam helped Sabrina rise up and began guiding her to their car, but she turned around and yelled that if she lost her kid, she would make sure I lost mine as well. At least 10 people had their phones out, recording her threat, and Ethan grabbed my hand, stating we were going to file a police report right away. We waited in Ethan's car in the parking lot as he contacted 911 to report the attack and threat to our infants. I texted Olivia, begging her to save any footage from the party, as my cheek throbbed and the twins moved around like crazy due to my anxiousness. 2 cops arrived approximately 20 minutes later and collected our statements while reviewing the footage Olivia and 3 other guests had recorded on their phones. They photographed my red face and advised us to file for a restraining order first thing Monday morning. 3 hours later, we arrived home, and Ethan was preparing me chamomile tea as I sat on the couch, trying to digest everything that had occurred. He knelt down next to me and said that he was afraid of what Sabrina would do next, recommending that we stay with his parents for a few days to be safe. I told him I was not going to allow her drive me out of my own home after everything she had done over the years. My phone began to fill up with notifications, as videos from the party went viral on TikTok and Instagram, with hashtags like baby shower meltdown and psycho sister. Comments poured in, calling Sabrina insane and mom abusive, while others said I was wrong for announcing my pregnancy at her party, even if she had it coming. The doorbell began to ring at 7 the next morning, as if someone was holding it down. Ethan got out of bed and glanced through the peephole, while I remained beneath the blankets. Margaret stood there, her cheeks flushed and puffy from tears. She repeatedly pressed the doorbell and began hammering on the door with her fist. Ethan urged me to keep back and opened the door just a crack, leaving the chain on. Margaret instantly thrust her fingers into the opening and attempted to push it open while yelling about the films. She insisted that I come to the door and take everything down right now. Her voice grew louder and louder until she was practically screaming about how I had ruined Sabrina's life and destroyed our family. Ethan kept his shoulder on the door and told her she had to leave. Margaret began kicking the door and yelling at me, claiming that I was a monster who had always been jealous of my sister. The neighbors started coming out of their apartments to see what was going on. Mrs. Chen next door stood in her bathrobe, capturing everything on her phone. Margaret spotted everyone watching and began ranting even louder about how I had plotted everything to harm Sabrina. She claimed I was nasty and had always intended to ruin my sister's happiness. Ethan finally informed her that if she did not leave immediately, he would contact the police. How did Sabrina know about the diary name I used when I was 15? That means she must have been rummaging through my belongings for years. I'm curious if the twins moving around with all that stress is normal, or if infants can actually feel. Margaret stepped away from the door, but continued to shout from the hallway about how I'd regret this. She left after another 20 minutes of shrieking threats at our door. My phone rang an hour later, and Thomas's name appeared on the screen. When I picked up, his voice sounded weary. He stated that Sabrina was still in the hospital under observation, and that the doctors were concerned about her blood pressure. He begged me to attend a family meeting to resolve this before things grew worse. I could hear the desperation in his voice as he requested me to simply talk to them. I told him I'd only meet if it was somewhere public, and Ethan accompanied me. Thomas agreed and suggested we meet at the Italian restaurant downtown in 2 days. Those 2 days passed slowly, and my anxiousness worsened by the hour. I couldn't stop wondering that all of this stress was affecting the twins. My hands shook as I scheduled an emergency appointment with my OB/GYN. When we arrived, the waiting area was busy, and I noticed a few women glancing at me. One of them whispered to her companion and pointed at me while holding her phone out. They'd obviously seen the viral videos that were still circulating online. Dr. Patel phoned me back and performed a thorough examination using the ultrasound machine. She swept the wand around my belly for what felt like an eternity while checking both babies. The twins were fine, but she told me that the level of stress was risky for all of us. She recommended a modest anxiety medication and advised me to avoid future conflicts. 2 days later, we entered the restaurant for the family gathering. Margaret, Thomas, Sabrina, and Liam were already seated at a large table at the rear. Sabrina was pale and had big circles under her eyes, but she had obviously applied her makeup properly. Margaret demanded that I apologize for everything as soon as we sat down. She told me I have to admit I arranged the entire thing to hurt Sabrina. Sabrina sat there, pretending to be a victim and wiping away phony tears, stating I'd always been jealous of her. She stated I couldn't stand that she was prettier and more popular with everyone. Liam sat there silently, but I noticed him quiver when Sabrina said that. Thomas tried to calm everyone down and urged that we all move on in peace. Margaret started interrupting him and raised her voice about how I had harmed her pregnant daughter. Others in the restaurant began to look over at our table. Sabrina suddenly reached into her purse and took out a hefty envelope. She slipped it over the table, a cruel sneer on her face. "I'm suing you for intentional infliction of emotional distress and endangering my baby." Her attorney believed she had a good case and might recover significant damages. Ethan instantly grabbed out his phone and dialed his cousin Vanessa, a family lawyer. Sabrina's face plummeted when she heard him explain the scenario to a real lawyer. We left the restaurant, Margaret still yelling threats after us. That evening, Olivia arrived at our door bearing champagne for Ethan and chocolate ice cream for me. She had seen everything online and wanted to make sure we were okay. She sat on our couch, brought out her phone, and showed us something. Olivia had preserved a folder of screenshots dating back years that documented Sabrina's attention-seeking habits. There were pictures from my high school graduation where Sabrina feigned to faint. Screenshots from my college acceptance party, during which she claimed to have chest symptoms. Posts from my engagement meal, where she had an unexpected allergic reaction to nothing. Sabrina had taken the attention with faux emergencies at events that I had entirely forgotten about. Olivia had been discreetly gathering proof of this trend for years, without informing me. A week after the baby shower, Ethan's cousin Vanessa arrived to review Sabrina's case. She went through the documents and began giggling at how ludicrous it was. Vanessa claimed it was utterly frivolous and would be thrown out immediately. She advised we file a countersuit for assault because Margaret had smacked me at the party. We could also sue Sabrina for the threats she made to our babies, which were captured on tape. Vanessa assisted us in preparing all of the necessary papers for court. Having true legal support allowed me to sleep through the night for the first time since the party. We went to the county courthouse the following week to file for a restraining order. Vanessa joined us and brought printed screenshots of the threatening texts and footage from the party. The judge went over everything, including witness testimony from neighbors regarding Margaret's screaming fit. He issued a temporary restraining order barring Margaret and Sabrina from coming within 500 feet of us. The order expressly included our home, Ethan's business, and my doctor's office. Margaret violated the restraining order within 48 hours by arriving at Ethan's office building. She walked straight past security and began yelling at the receptionist to allow her see Ethan. Security apprehended her and summoned the police, as she battled and shouted about me harming her family. The cops detained her and brought her away in handcuffs, while Ethan's co-workers watched from the windows. His employer invited him into a meeting and advised he work from home until the matter was fixed. Ethan set up an office in our spare bedroom and began working remotely the next day. I awoke at 3 a.m., a few nights later, to strange noises outside our bedroom window. My pulse began racing as I crept over to peep through the slats. Sabrina's automobile was parked across the street, just past the 500-foot restriction. She was sitting in the driver's seat, staring straight at our apartment building. I watched her for 20 minutes and she did not move or look away from our windows. She remained there for 3 more hours, simply observing our house in the dark. The next morning, Ethan installed security cameras that covered every facet of our building. Sabrina spent 2 weeks parked just outside the camera range every night. Thomas arrived at our door on a Tuesday afternoon, appearing as if he hadn't slept in days. His eyes were bloodshot, and his shirt was wrinkled as if he had been wearing it for 3 days straight. He sat down on our couch and massaged his face with both hands. Margaret had been living at their house since the baby shower, and was driving Liam insane with her incessant complaints about me. Thomas stated that Liam was considering filing for divorce since Sabrina's preoccupation with ruining me was making her sick while pregnant. Liam couldn't bear the stress any longer. It was harming their baby. 3 days later, I had my 20-week anatomy scan at the hospital. The ultrasound tech swept the wand around my belly for what seemed like an eternity without saying anything. Dr. Patel walked in and took over, measuring each twin again. One twin was smaller than the other and required closer monitoring every week from now on. The worry was directly impacting my baby's growth, and I couldn't hold back the tears. Ethan held me while I wailed in the chilly, dark room, gel still on my belly. That night, Olivia called me in a panic as I was resting in bed. Someone had placed my medical information on a local mom Facebook community, including my doctor's name, clinic address, and appointment times for the next month. The message included screenshots of my medical chart, which showed I was having twins, and my due date. Only someone with access to the hospital system could have obtained the records. Ethan quickly contacted hospital security, while I called our lawyer on speakerphone. The lawyer informed us that this was a major federal crime, and that we needed to document everything immediately. Vanessa called me the next morning with disturbing news she learned from her contacts at the medical center. Thomas's wife, Paula, worked in the billing department and had unlawfully accessed my information for several weeks. The hospital's IT department discovered her logon accessing my files 17 times in the previous month. Paula was hauled out by security that afternoon and faced imminent dismissal. The hospital administrator contacted to apologize and confirm that they were fully cooperating with the criminal inquiry. Thomas walked up at our home again that evening, devastated by Paula's actions. He had no idea she had been aiding Sabrina, and he felt betrayed by his wife. The next day, I received a text from Liam that made my hands shake as I read it. He apologized for Sabrina's behavior, and revealed that she had kept a notebook full of plans to harm me since high school. He discovered it concealed in their closet, containing pages and pages of ideas dating back years. Liam was concerned for their baby's safety and planned to speak with a custody lawyer the next morning. He agreed to testify on our behalf if we needed him in court against Sabrina. 3 weeks after the baby shower, Sabrina posted a wholly fabricated narrative on Facebook, causing an internet firestorm. She said I had been tracking her for months and provided images she had manipulated to make it appear as if I was following her. The post included false text exchanges she had manufactured depicting me threatening her and her baby. Within hours, the post had been posted hundreds of times in Buffalo mommy groups. Strangers began sending me death threats via Facebook and Instagram. Someone put our home address in the comments, claiming that I deserved whatever happened to me. Ethan phoned the FBI that afternoon about the cyberstalking and murder threats. They took it seriously, and said that they would begin an investigation into the harassment campaign. Meanwhile, my blood pressure rose with each doctor appointment. Dr. Patel put me on modified bed rest, and told me I could only leave the house for medical appointments. The twin size discrepancy was worsening, and she was concerned about an early delivery. Being locked at home while Sabrina spread lies about me online felt like being imprisoned. I'm genuinely curious how Paula got engaged in all of this. Did Sabrina persuade her to help? Or was it Thomas's mother, Margaret, who drew her in? The hospital caught her viewing those files 17 times, which makes me wonder what she was doing. I watched from my bed as hateful comments flooded in on all social media platforms. Olivia started taking screenshots of everything for a slander lawsuit she was assisting us with. She documented every falsehood, threat, and act of harassment for our legal team. Ethan took time off work to stay home and care for me full-time. He brought me food in bed every morning and sat next to me while reading to the twins. He'd place his hands on my belly and express how much we already loved them. His voice was the only thing keeping me sane as our world crumbled around us. 2 days later, the cops arrived at our house with information concerning Paula. She was arrested for violating HIPAA and faced up to 10 years in federal prison. The investigation revealed that she had been feeding Sabrina information about my pregnancy for several months. She had sent Sabrina copies of my ultrasounds, blood test results, and even my weight after each session. Thomas filed for divorce on the same day, outraged by what Paula had done to our family. The family was utterly split up, with everyone taking sides and pointing fingers. A month after the baby shower, I was sitting by my bedroom window when I noticed a process server go up to our door. My heart fell when Ethan responded and accepted the hefty envelope of documents. Sabrina was suing both of us for alienation of affection and conspiracy to harm her reputation. She also sued for mental harm, claiming that we intentionally turned her family against her. The lawsuit sought $500,000 in damages, plus legal fees. We had previously spent thousands of dollars on a lawyer for the restraining order and criminal cases. We now needed a civil attorney, and the bills were piling up quicker than we could pay them. Vanessa called that night and instructed me to come into her office first thing in the morning. I sat across from her desk as she spread out papers and began creating lists. She sued Sabrina 3 times for slander, emotional anguish, and harassment. She filed criminal charges against Margaret for assault at the baby shower. She cautioned me that this could take months, if not years, to resolve, but we needed to fight back. 2 weeks later, I awoke at 3 a.m. with searing aches running through my abdomen. Ethan drove me to the hospital, and I held the door handle and tried to breathe through the contractions. The nurse connected me to monitors and summoned Dr. Patel, who hurried in still wearing his pajama pants beneath his white coat. He gave me needles to stop the labor and explained that the twins would not survive if born at 24 weeks. I spent 3 days in the hospital on bed rest, while the contractions gradually stopped. Sabrina wrote on Facebook about karma catching up with me while I was still hooked up to the monitors. Liam arrived in my hospital room the second day with roses disguised beneath his jacket. He sat in the chair next my bed and apologized for all that had transpired. He informed me that Sabrina had been prescribed medication for her mental health, but she refused to take it. He was documenting everything for the divorce and keeping track of her actions. 6 weeks after the baby shower, Olivia planned a support rally at our house. Cars lined our street, and people I hadn't seen since college arrived with casseroles and baby gifts. My co-workers brought diapers, and our neighbors put up tables in the backyard. Everyone was talking about Sabrina and Margaret's outrageous social media posts. We were all in the backyard when we heard screaming coming from the front yard. Sabrina stood on our lawn, 8 months pregnant, screaming that I was turning everyone against her. Olivia attempted to lead her back to her car, but Sabrina shoved her away. When liquid splattered into the grass, Sabrina grabbed her belly. The ambulance arrived 15 minutes later, and she yelled that I had caused her to go into early labor. The next morning, Ethan and I sat at the kitchen table in quiet, our phones buzzing with texts. Everyone was buzzing about Sabrina's successful hospital delivery of a healthy baby girl. I was relieved that the baby was fine, despite everything that had happened between us. Margaret contacted my phone that afternoon, and her voice was like poison. She claimed Sabrina named the kid Isla Aurora Claire and added my name to spite me. Liam texted me that he refused to sign the birth certificate until Sabrina consented to counseling. Olivia hosted another baby shower for me at her home 2 months after the first. I was opening presents when a process server approached and handed me paperwork. Sabrina was seeking a restraining order against me, saying that I had caused her premature labor. The judge assigned to our case visited Margaret's church, and Vanessa was incensed at the conflict of interest. Despite all of our evidence and Vanessa's arguments, the judge upheld Sabrina's restraining order against me. We couldn't be within 500 feet of each other, since that would complicate our impending court hearings. Vanessa quickly filed for recusal and began the appeals process, which would take weeks. That night, I laid in bed, feeling the twins kicking and rolling inside of me. Ethan embraced me as I grieved about the world we were bringing our babies into. We were both weary by the ongoing legal fights and emotional conflict with my family. 10 weeks passed, with lawyers submitting paperwork back and forth while I got bigger by the day. Olivia arrived at my home one morning, lugging a dusty cardboard box from her garage. She had saved all of our childhood photos after Margaret threw them away years ago. I sat on the couch, spreading them across the coffee table, while she prepared tea in my kitchen. Sabrina and I were 5 and 6 years old, with our arms around each other on the beach, both missing front teeth and smiling. Another showed us matching Halloween outfits, which she had requested me to wear with her. Photo after photo of 2 young ladies who previously adored each other. My hands shook as I picked up one from my 9th birthday, when Sabrina helped me blow out the candles. Her face brightened up with genuine joy for me. Olivia sat down and caressed my back as I cried. It wasn't about a baby shower or partiality anymore. This was mental disease eroding what was once a real connection. Liam called that afternoon with news that made my blood run cold. He had filed for emergency custody of baby Isla after discovering a notepad in which Sabrina had repeatedly written, "Destroy Claire," for 20 pages. She had also refused to take her prescribed medicine and missed 3 psychiatrist appointments. The judge granted his petition promptly based on the evidence presented. When the custody officer arrived at Margaret's house to serve the papers, Sabrina completely lost it. She grabbed Isla and dashed to her car, as Margaret blocked the officer's way. They vanished before anyone could stop them. Liam arrived at the police station within an hour and filed a missing person report for his daughter. Isla's photo and descriptions of Sabrina and Margaret were used to issue the Amber Alert that evening. I sat hooked to my phone, waiting for updates as Ethan paced our living room on the phone with Vanessa. Every news alert sent my heart racing. Around midnight, the cops discovered them in a motel 2 towns away after someone identified them from the notice. Both women were detained on the scene for custodial interference. Sabrina screamed and fought the officers, while Margaret raged about persecution. Baby Isla was safely returned to Liam, who clutched her as if he would never let go again. 3 days later, Vanessa invited us into her office to discuss the growing charges. She put files on her desk, documenting assault, threats, harassment, and now kidnapping charges between them. Given the history of escalation, the prosecutor pushed for severe jail time. Vanessa stared at me squarely and asked if I was willing to testify, perhaps sending my mother and sister to prison. The room swirled as the weight of that struck me. Ethan took my hand as I nodded yes. Thomas arrived at our place the following week, looking like he'd aged 10 years. His divorce from Paula was finalized, and he began visiting a therapist twice a week. He sat at our kitchen table and apologized for 30 years of allowing Margaret's behavior and favoritism for Sabrina. He stated that he had always knew it was bad, but preferred the easy route of avoiding controversy. He cried when he admitted he should have protected me better. 3 months after the baby shower, I was sitting in a deposition room answering questions about every occurrence when I felt a sharp pain in my abdomen. The lawyer continued to ask questions as I grabbed the table edge. Another contraction struck stronger. Ethan leaped up as I doubled over. The stenographer contacted 911 while I tried to breathe through the rapid contractions. At the hospital, Dr. Patel used IV medication to swiftly stop the labor. She continuously checked the monitors, stating that the stress was causing actual labor at just 30 weeks. The twins need extra time. She was able to halt the contractions, but warned that they could start again at any time. Meanwhile, Vanessa's appeal succeeded, and the recusal was granted. A new judge reviewed everything and instantly overturned Sabrina's restraining order against me. He issued bench warrants against Sabrina and Margaret for violating the initial protective order. After months of games, justice appeared to be within reach, but Dr. Patel insisted on strict hospital bed rest for the remainder of my pregnancy. I spent my days in that sterile room, observing the twins' heartbeats on monitors. Sabrina posted on a false Instagram account about being a victim of persecution and how the system was against her. She appeared to be utterly divorced from reality, as if she were living in a fantasy world in which she had done nothing wrong. Did Sabrina actually write, "Destroy Claire" for 20 pages? That is such an unusual thing to do. I'm curious if she was attempting to work out her emotions, or if something deeper was going on in her head when she wrote everything. Ethan delivered news that complicated things even more. His firm was moving him to Seattle with a large promotion and full relocation support. After everything had happened, they wanted him to be in a different office. He held my hand as we discussed leaving Buffalo behind and starting over 3,000 miles from my family. Half of me felt relieved at the prospect of fleeing, but another half felt sorry about leaving. Sabrina returned to the hospital 2 days later, claiming to want to apologize. Security stopped her at the elevator, but she managed to shout loud enough for the entire floor to hear that she wished my babies would die in the same way that our love did. 3 nurses observed the incident, and security had to forcibly remove her. Vanessa added witness intimidation to the expanding number of charges when she learned about it. Liam arrived at my hospital window 14 weeks after that chaotic pregnancy shower, holding his daughter wrapped in a pink blanket. Baby Isla was so little and lovely, with little fingers that gripped the air as she slept. He put her up to the glass so I could see her face better and said he had filed for divorce. The papers had already been completed, and he was heading to his mother's house in Rochester to raise her away from all of this chaos. I pushed my fingers on the window and watched as they left. This innocent baby had no idea what her mother had done. Vanessa called the next morning to inform me that the district attorney was taking over our case totally. They were putting everything into a single criminal case against Sabrina and my mother for the kidnapping alone. We weren't just dealing with a lawsuit anymore, but with actual felony charges that may result in real prison time. Vanessa stated that we would now have to testify as witnesses in a criminal trial, rather than a civil matter. The arraignment was scheduled for Tuesday morning, and I watched the news broadcast from my hospital bed. Mom stood in an orange jumpsuit next to Sabrina as the judge read the charges. Mom then gripped her chest and fell right there in court. The bailiffs raced in and began CPR, as Sabrina yelled at the cameras that I was murdering our mother. They brought Mom out on a stretcher, and the news reported that she had suffered a catastrophic heart attack. Despite everything she'd done to me, I felt a strange pain in my chest as they worked on her. Thomas arrived in my room an hour later, looking fatigued from running between floors. Mom was stable but critical in the cardiac unit, 2 floors below me. He said she kept asking for me and claiming she had an epiphany about everything. Ethan shook his head and told Thomas that there was no way he was going near her after what she'd done. But I kept thinking about her lying there 2 floors down, possibly dying, and something inside me shattered. I informed the nurse that I wanted to visit her, but only with security guards present. They wheeled me down in a wheelchair, with 2 guards walking alongside me. Mom seemed so little in that hospital bed, with all the tubes and monitors blaring around her. Her face was gray, and she had aged 10 years in the previous few weeks. She reached for my hand with trembling fingers and began crying. She claimed she had been living through Sabrina because she was envious that I had achieved success without her assistance. The words didn't make things better, but seeing her admit it was something I never expected. 2 weeks later, I was back in my bed, 32 weeks pregnant, watching the local news for the 10th time about our family. The headline, "Buffalo Family Feud Turns Criminal," scrolled across the bottom, along with photographs from Sabrina's Instagram. I caressed my large tummy and realized my twins will eventually Google their family and find all of this stuff online forever. The concept made me want to vomit more than my morning sickness ever did. That's when the news anchor disclosed some leaked records from Sabrina's psychiatric evaluation. The report revealed that she had been diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder and postpartum psychosis. Her lawyer had already changed their entire defense to suggest she was insane when everything happened. Liam texted me that he was exploiting the diagnosis to seek permanent custody of Isla. Olivia arrived the next day with balloons and a small cake, claiming she'd prepared a do-over baby shower right in my hospital bed. We had only a few close friends come, maybe 10 in total, and we sat about eating cake and opening presents without any drama. Everyone mentioned the nursery Ethan had put up in our new Seattle apartment, and how ideal it would be for beginning over. The twins' room was painted a soothing yellow, with 2 cribs all erected and ready for us. Ethan never left my side through it all, sleeping in that uncomfortable chair next to my bed each night. I'd wake up at 3 a.m. to hear him talk to my stomach about all the parks in Seattle and the nice schools near our apartment. He had already researched everything from specialists to infant music courses and had a detailed plan for our future existence. His voice was the only thing keeping me sane as we waited for the legal proceedings to conclude. Then, 2 weeks later, Sabrina escaped from her mental confinement, causing chaos once more. According to the press, she convinced an orderly that she had a medical emergency and sneaked away during the shift change. Security cameras captured her snatching a kitchen knife from the hospital cafeteria before heading to the elevators. She made it to the maternity unit gate, screaming my name and swinging her knife. 3 security guards apprehended her before she could pass through the locked doors, but not before frightening a group of new mothers and visitors. The entire floor was placed on lockdown for 2 hours. While police detained her, and this time, the judge ordered her detained without bail. 2 days later, the prosecutor contacted to inform me that the trial would be expedited due to the knife incident and my high-risk pregnancy. Vanessa, the assistant prosecutor, arrived at my hospital room with boxes of files and a laptop to prepare me for testimony. She showed me photos of the proof they had, such as recordings from the baby shower, witness testimonies from everyone at the party, and screenshots of Sabrina's social media posts threatening me. The entire preparation took 3 hours, with Vanessa asking me about every single time Sabrina wrecked my major moments since we were kids. Liam arrived the next afternoon, carrying Isla, who was wearing a small pink dress with ducks on it. He sat in the chair next to my bed, switched the baby to one arm, and pulled out his phone to show me photos of her nursery. After approximately 10 minutes of light talk, he requested Ethan and me to be Deli's godparents if anything happened to him. He admitted that things were chaotic, but he wanted his daughter to meet her cousins when they were born and have family who cared about her. Ethan clasped my hand and we both agreed, even though my chest tightened from thinking about how damaged everything had become. 3 days later, Dr. Patel came in during her morning rounds and highlighted a date on the calendar on my wall. She stated 34 weeks was as long as she felt comfortable letting me go with all the stress, and the twins were large enough to handle it. The C-section was scheduled for next Thursday, so my babies would arrive right in the thick of Sabrina's trial. I spent the entire night staring at that red circle on the calendar, feeling as if the cosmos had some strange sense of timing. On the morning of my testimony, Vanessa set up the camera equipment in my hospital room as a nurse checked my blood pressure every 10 minutes. The judge's face showed first on the laptop screen, followed by the jury box and lastly, the defense table, where Sabrina sat in an orange jumpsuit, facing directly ahead. Vanessa had advised me not to look at her, but I couldn't help myself and noticed her lips moving as if she was speaking to herself. The prosecution asked me to recount the baby shower incident, and I told them everything, from the cake knife to the puking to her yelling about how it was her day. Then he inquired about our youth, and I recounted every performance, graduation, birthday and milestone mother had undermined with staged medical situations or dramatic events. The jury members kept looking at each other and taking notes, while one woman in the front row held her palm over her mouth. When they inquired about the pregnancy announcement, Sabrina looked up briefly, and our gazes locked through the screen before she resumed muttering. Thomas arrived that evening with a crate of old VHS tapes that he had converted to digital using his laptop. We watched films of Sabrina and me as children, before everything went wrong, playing dress-up and having tea parties in our backyard. There was one time when she was teaching me how to ride a bike, jogging alongside me and cheering when I got my balance. Ethan held me while I grieved, seeing the sister I'd lost due to envy and mental instability. Mom took the stand 2 days later, and Vanessa emailed me updates while I was unable to watch. She admitted to beating me in the shower and told the court that she had always preferred Sabrina because she was more attractive and extroverted. The prosecution inquired if she'd noticed Sabrina's habit of disrupting my events, and Mom answered she felt I was being theatrical. However, when they showed her the timing of each incident on a board, she had to concede it appeared planned. Mom asked the judge to send Sabrina to treatment instead of prison, claiming she was unwell, not evil. However, the prosecutor argued that recognizing right and wrong entailed accepting responsibility for her actions. The next morning, they showed the baby shower recordings to the jury, and Vanessa reported that numerous people looked sick while watching them. What drives someone to swing a knife about in a hospital maternity ward? Sabrina's deception of that orderly demonstrates that she was thinking well enough to plan her escape before losing control when she approached my floor. The knife threat was terrible enough, but Sabrina's smirk while holding it made matters worse. When they got to the portion where she screamed that it was her day, she stood up in court and yelled that I had doctored the video. The judge ordered her to sit down, but she continued to shout that I had paid someone to edit the recordings until the bailiffs physically removed her from the courtroom. Olivia stopped by that afternoon with 2 little dresses, lovely yellow blankets, and a photo album she'd been working on. She had requested everyone we knew to write words for the twins, and collected them all, along with photos of Ethan and me during my pregnancy. Reading the well wishes from friends, co-workers, and even some of the nurses made me understand how much love was waiting for these babies despite the pandemonium. Liam testified the next day, and the prosecutor instructed him to bring a cardboard box to the witness stand. Inside was a notebook labeled, Operation Destroy Claire, which they discovered in Sabrina's closet, and contained entries dating back to high school. He read pages aloud, detailing elaborate preparations to disrupt my prom, college acceptance celebration, engagement party, and dozens of other events. Some entries included sketches of me crying, or suggestions of how to upstage me on various occasions. Even Mom looked stunned when they showed close-ups of the pages on the courtroom screens. According to Vanessa's texts, Liam's voice cracked when he read an item from shortly after my wedding, in which Sabrina expressed a desire to burn my dress, or put something in my meal to make me sick. When the prosecutor inquired how he found the notebook, Liam explained that he discovered it while packing up their flat following her imprisonment. During his testimony regarding the baby shower, Sabrina began yelling from her seat that the baby was not his, and that she would prove it. She shrieked that she would kill anyone who betrayed her, including me, the babies, Liam, and everybody who supported me. The judge ordered her removal, but she continued to scream threats until 4 bailiffs carried her out while she attempted to bite one of them. The judge promptly ordered a psychiatric evaluation and stated that she would be confined at the State Mental Institute until further notice. 2 weeks later, the judge confirmed Sabrina's inability to stand trial due to mental illness. The court committed her to a state facility for therapy that might last years. Margaret's case proceeded on its own, as she was mentally fine. Just cruel. Ethan clutched my hand tightly when we heard the news in our apartment. We both understood this was only the beginning of a long journey ahead. My doctor scheduled my C-section for exactly 35 weeks the next morning, citing that the twins were no longer growing sufficiently within me. Ethan and I spent the last night before surgery, lying in the hospital bed together, discussing how we'd raise our children away from all of this crazy family crap. We promised each other that we'd stop the cycle and give kids regular childhoods filled with love, not turmoil and fighting. When I was carried into surgery the next morning, Ethan dressed in scrubs and held my hand behind the curtain while they cut me open. At 7:23 a.m., our kid was born, weighing 3 pounds and wailing loudly. At 7:24 a.m., our daughter arrived, much smaller, but battling hard. Ethan cried when he held them for the first time, these little exquisite babies we'd created together. Through the recovery room window, I saw Thomas standing in the corridor, tears streaming down his cheeks, finally getting to be a grandfather to babies who would recognize him. The nurses immediately transported our twins to the NICU, where they would require assistance breathing and feeding for a while. Thomas paid Margaret a visit 3 days after the birth, bringing word of her trial. She had been convicted of assault and harassment, but was merely sentenced to 2 years probation and required therapy sessions. The judge prohibited her from contacting us unless we first contacted out, which we never did. Thomas claimed she was now coming to terms with her mistakes, but I wasn't interested in her redemption story. A week later, Vanessa delivered mail to the NICU while I was cradling my newborn son on my chest for skin-to-skin contact. The letter came from Sabrina's psychiatric facility, and as I opened it, my hands shook. She'd written to apologize, but also to reveal that she was pregnant again with Liam's child from before their split. Liam arrived an hour later, deeply crushed by the knowledge that he would be forever bound to Sabrina through 2 children. The twins lived in the NICU for 3 weeks, learning to breathe and eat on their own, and becoming stronger each day. Olivia came over every day to give me updates on our Seattle house preparations, including images of the nursery she'd painted soft yellow with clouds on the ceiling. She had found us a wonderful neighborhood with terrific schools and regular family that did not abuse each other at baby showers. Vanessa submitted all of the legal papers to secure our move, shifting the restraining orders to Washington State, where stalking laws were stricter. She ensured that Sabrina could not track us down or send personnel after us once we left Buffalo. Liam introduced Isla to her new relatives via the glass pane during the baby's 2nd week in the NICU. He pulled his daughter up so she could see the little infants in their incubators, and she placed her little hands against the glass, saying "babies" repeatedly. Watching Liam carefully explain to Isla that these were her cousins made me realize what wonderful a father he could have been if Sabrina hadn't poisoned his life. He assured me that he would keep Sabrina away from us and handle her visits with Isla so that we would never have to see her again. Sabrina's mental team contacted with critical news 2 days before the twins were scheduled to be discharged. During her treatment sessions, she became obsessed with my twins, claiming everyone that they were her babies that I had stolen. Despite the medication, her delusions were worsening, and she had attempted to flee twice before coming to see us. The psychiatrist strongly advised us to leave Buffalo as soon as the babies were able to travel. At exactly 3 weeks old, the twins had reached their weight targets and could maintain their body temperature without the incubators. As Ethan was signing the release form, Thomas arrived with the news that Paula had pleaded guilty to HIPAA violations for accessing my medical records. She was sentenced to 6 months in jail and lost her nursing license indefinitely, adding to the domino effect of the baby shower. Our last night in Buffalo was 3 days later, and Olivia had organized a goodbye supper at her house for the few family members who were still speaking to us. Thomas handed me a thick photo album filled with images from before things went crazy. Back when we were all just kids playing in the backyard, not knowing what was going to happen. He promised to visit Seattle once we were situated. The twins slept for the majority of the supper in their car seats, as folks alternated cuddling and sobbing over them. Olivia made my favorite lasagna and continued refilling everyone's wine glasses, even though no one was actually drinking. I spotted her the next morning at Buffalo International Airport, while pushing the double stroller through security. Sabrina stood near Gate 12 with a medical assistant beside her, dressed in sweatpants and a hoodie I had never seen before. Her face was swollen from the medication, and her hands shook as she gripped a coffee cup. She spotted us at the same time I saw her. Her entire face crumpled like paper, and she mumbled something resembling, "I'm sorry," before the assistant turned her around and took her away via a different gate. That was the last time I saw my sister. On the plane, I nursed both twins while Ethan looked up Seattle neighborhood listings on his phone. An older woman across the aisle kept smiling at us, eventually leaning over to tell us we had beautiful babies and made a wonderful family. She had no notion we were essentially refugees escaping our hometown. When we arrived in Seattle, Vanessa's messages flooded my phone. Sabrina had been committed involuntarily for at least 6 months after threatening to find us and remove what she referred to as her babies. Liam had filed for permanent custody of both children after Sabrina was pronounced unfit. The legal battles would continue without us. Our new house in Seattle seemed ideal, with large windows and a quiet street, but I couldn't unwind. Each doorbell made me jump. I triple-checked the locks before going to bed and watched every face in the park as if they were someone Sabrina had sent. Ethan located a family therapist who specialized in trauma and scheduled our first meeting for the following week. Thomas called 2 weeks later with updates on Mom. She'd begun treatment and was finally acknowledging how she'd been enabling Sabrina's conduct for years. She had written us a lengthy letter, which Thomas offered to read over the phone. It was truly remorseful, talking about how she had failed both of her children by picking favorites and created this competition between us. After a month in Seattle, the twins smiled for the first time during a video call with Olivia. Real grins, not gas. Olivia burst into tears immediately. Then I started crying. Then Ethan began to cry. We were all bawling as we saw these two small babies smile at a phone screen. These exquisite moments reminded me why we'd battled so hard to keep them safe. Vanessa called with news that made my stomach drop. Sabrina had lost the pregnancy during what they called a psychotic episode, in which she attempted to take out the baby herself because she believed aliens had placed it there. They had transferred her to a long-term psychiatric hospital upstate. Even after everything she'd done, I felt terrible thinking about her missing baby and her broken mind. Liam chose to go to Portland with Isla and his new girlfriend, close enough for the cousins to grow up knowing each other, but far enough away from Buffalo's poison. How did Sabrina get to meet them at the airport while she was supposed to be in treatment? The timing feels weird. She's standing there with a medical assistant as they leave town for good. We agreed to meet once a month for playdates, hoping to salvage something healthy from all of this destruction. 3 months into our Seattle life, the last legal papers arrived via certified mail. All criminal accusations were handled by plea bargains or convictions. The restraining orders were made permanent. Our Buffalo home was sold to a beautiful young couple who knew nothing about its history. Sabrina's last document indicated that she will be committed indefinitely after being considered a danger to herself and others. The war had over, but no one had actually won anything. Returning to work seemed strange after everything. The office building downtown had glass doors that mirrored my face back at me, and for a brief moment, I didn't know the lady peering back. Ethan stayed at home with the twins, and I sat at my desk, answering emails about marketing strategies and quarterly reports. My coworkers discussed their weekend plans and complained about traffic, and no one mentioned the viral video, the knife, or anything else. During lunch breaks, I pumped milk in the restroom and checked my phone for images Ethan had sent of the babies. 3 weeks into the job, my manager asked if I wanted to join the team for drinks, and I genuinely agreed. Sitting in that bar, listening to normal folks talk about normal problems, felt like I was finally wearing a costume that fit. My therapist's office had beige walls and a white noise machine that produced ocean noises. I sat on her couch, picking at the throw pillow as she waited for me to speak. The word lingered in my throat for 20 minutes before I eventually spoke it aloud. I became pregnant on purpose to harm my sister. Not for love or for a family, but for vengeance. The therapist did not look startled or appalled. Instead, she nodded and asked how I felt now. I assured her that it was empty. Empty, guilty, and still angry. She claimed healing entailed accepting all of the negative aspects of how we got here. After 6 months in Seattle, the twins turned 1, and Thomas called to ask if he might come visit. I was about to hang up, but Ethan grabbed the phone and answered yes before I could stop him. Thomas arrived at our door with a wrapped package, appearing older than I remembered. He handed me the gift without looking at me and explained, "Margaret made it, but couldn't come herself." Inside, there was a quilt composed of fabric remnants in various shades of blue and green. A little envelope containing Margaret's handwriting was tucked away in the corner. I didn't open it. Not then. Thomas played with the twins for an hour, helped them blow out their birthday candles, and then went without asking for anything else. The quilt was stored in the closet rather than in the garbage. Olivia contacted 2 months later, stating she had received a job offer in Seattle. Within a week, she got an apartment 3 blocks away and was visiting us every evening after work. She delivered takeaway and held the babies while Ethan and I ate with both hands for once. When she walked in, the twins reached for her, so she began keeping diapers and formula on hand. Liam also paid us a visit, accompanied by his new girlfriend, who was unaware of our history and simply saw us as Liam's normal sister with his normal family. We had game evenings and barbecues, and no one discussed Buffalo, baby showers, or anything from the past. 8 months in Seattle felt like the perfect time to revisit something we should have done differently the first time. Ethan casually mentioned it when we were cleaning dishes, as if he were talking about the weather. "We might reaffirm our vows," he explained. "Do it correctly this time. Just us and the people that truly count. There is no large production, competition, or family drama." I kissed him with soapy hands and said yes. The ceremony took place in our backyard with Olivia, Liam, his fiancée, and baby Isla, whom Olivia was babysitting for the afternoon. Liam's girlfriend captured it on her phone as the twins attempted to eat the flowers Olivia plucked from her garden. Ethan penned his own vows to choose each other every day, especially on difficult days. I simply told him I loved him and meant it. After everyone had departed, we put the twins to bed and slow danced in the kitchen with no music. 9 months after leaving Buffalo, we received a letter from Sabrina's treatment facility. The doctor's handwriting indicated that she had been making improvement with therapy and medicines. She had sent letters of apologies to everyone as part of her treatment. "Will we explore supervised video contact in the future?" The letter was filed in the important papers folder, along with the twins' birth certificates and our automobile insurance. Maybe eventually I'll answer it. Today was not that day. The twins took their first steps on the same wet Tuesday as I was folding laundry. First, one twin stood up and used the coffee table. Then the other person observed and had to duplicate. They wobbled toward one another and collapsed in a fit of laughs. Ethan mentioned that they were already competing, and we both froze. Then he chuckled and remarked, "Competition could be good, like who could give the best hugs, or be the kindest." We were making new family rules. Some nights I dreamed of Sabrina, but not the woman with the knife. I dreamed about my sister, who taught me how to ride my bike in the driveway. The one who shared her Halloween sweets with me despite the fact that mine ended up in a puddle. The girl who lived before things went wrong. I awoke crying from those dreams, mourning someone who may only have lived in my memory. Ethan hugged me without asking questions, because some pain does not require words. 1 year in Seattle signified 1 year since the baby shower. I shared a single photo on Instagram of the twins giggling at the park. I turned off comments before anyone could respond to the caption, "The best revenge is a life well lived." Some stories didn't require audiences anymore. The park near our house offered baby swings and a sandbox where the twins could play for hours. Ethan pushed them while I sat on the seat with my coffee, admiring our small family that we had created from turmoil. A woman sat next to me and commented on how peaceful and joyful we all looked together. For the first time I believed her. The twins would learn their story someday, when they were old enough to comprehend how families can break and mend again. They'd know about their aunt and grandparents, as well as why we lived so far away from mommy and daddy's childhood home. But today, they only understood that daddy made airplane noises when he pushed them high, that mommy always had goldfish crackers in her purse, and that their world was safe, small, and full of love. That was sufficient. That was everything. That's all for today. Thank you for discussing all of these questions with me. What a journey, just thinking about things together.